On today's show, we'll discuss working with Second Team, the layers of operating, Glee, American Horror Story, The Boys in the Band, and of course, outside art. Just a little bit of business before we start. There may be a curse word here or there in this episode, so please listen responsibly. Make sure to check out our website, theop.io, especially the breakdown where operators talk about everything that goes into the making of a shot, and read the musings for discussions about everything from quick tips to larger concepts behind operating. I may or may not take a couple of breaks during this episode, but I promise you none of them will be longer than 22 seconds. Finally, if you are enjoying the podcast, please follow us, like us, talk about us, and share us with your friends. So grab a beverage, sit back, and enjoy the op. Thanks for listening.
Lock it up, nice and quiet, and let's roll.
Rolling. Victor 30 Echo, take 2.
Hey, Mark. Hey, Mark.
And camera set.
Back up.
And action.
Hello and welcome back to The Op, the podcast where we talk about operators and operating and the art of visual storytelling. I am your host, Dave Comides, and I am very thankful yet again to be coming to you live at the moment anyway, from Panavision Woodland Hills in their amazing theater, which sounds better than the laundry room in my house. So I appreciate them. Thank you to Panavision for allowing me to be here. Today I have an amazing guest, Andrew Mitchell, who we've known each other for a long time. Andrew is presently a director of photography, but for years and years, maybe I won't say years and years, for a bit, was an A-camera Steadicam operator and honestly one of the best in the business. As a director of photography, his credits include 911 Lone Star, American Horror Story, Ratched, Hollywood, and as among others. And as a camera Steadicam operator, Ratched, The Prom, The Politician, American Crime Story, The People vs. O.J. Simpson, which he won SOC Award, Operator of the Year Award for, as well as Versace, Feud, TV show that a couple of people might have heard called Glee, I think it's called, which he also won the SOC Operator of the Year Award for, rightfully so. And two of my personal favorites, High School Musical 2 and 3, because they explained some of the questions left over after High School Musical 1. A lot of other things, a great camera operator, a great Steadicam operator, a great DP, and a great guy. Andrew, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Dave. It's good to be here. See you again.
It's pretty cool.
We've known each other for probably a couple decades now.
A little bit. Yeah. Well, God, I feel old. My knees hurt when you say that. Andrew and I actually met on, what was it called?
It was like Lonesome Dove something. It
was
Dead Man's Walk.
Dead Man's Walk, Larry McMurtry novel, Lonesome Dove series in
Texas, yeah.
Lajitas, Texas.
West Texas.
Yes.
In the middle of nowhere.
I was was I the B camera operator, Steadicam, or was the A camera?
Yeah, B camera.
Because
I think Eddie operated
Eddie
A.
Pay, the director of photography, was operating A. I was B, and I came in and met Andrew, and he was the focus puller. And actually, the two things I remember about that show was I got my first new Steadicam on that show, the Pro. Do you remember when that came in?
I remember that. It was like
it was a big
brand
deal.
Spanking new.
It was like it had that new car smell when you opened it up.
Not a scratch.
And I remember pulling it out and using it for the first time. It was exciting. And then I remember on the weekends you asked me if I would show you how to operate Steadicam. So I just want to take the moment now to basically take credit for your entire career. If that's
all credit goes to you. Thank you very much.
If there are checks that are coming, that'd be fine too. No, but Andrew, we had a lot of fun there, and then he went on to become. And actually, the other thing is, I remember you bought a Mustang. Am I crazy?
You're not crazy. I did.
You bought a Mustang down in Texas and drove it back to Utah.
Yes.
Like a 60.
What a crazy thing to do while
67?
You're on location. It was a white 66 convertible. Yeah. I've had Mustangs all my life, so that was one of them. And
was it just that like it was in excellent condition and you found it there?
It was in good condition, and I thought it would be great to have a vehicle, and it was the right price. And anyway, it was. Yeah. I did have some problems with it, but
I remember that well. That was a fun show. It's also I think as I remember, it was the fourth lowest rated miniseries of all time, or something.
The
like
fourth
that.
Lowest,
something like that. And I
didn't know that.
I have the jacket still, and I wear it sometimes. And people are like, "Wow, you worked on that movie?" I'm like, "No, it's not Dead Men's Walk. It's Dead Men Walking. It's a very different thing." Anyway, total sidebar there. But so Andrew, tell me, how'd you get to where you are? What's your story?
How did I get? From the beginning.
Well, you don't have to come from birth. You can start in whenever you want. But how'd you get into the film industry?
Where I started veering towards camera work.
Yeah, you grew up in Utah, which is not quite the burgeoning film community, I think. And,
right. Yeah. So industry wise, started in Utah. I would claim East Coast growing up. Avid skateboarder, started VHS movies, skateboard videos back in the 80s, of course.
Nice.
And actually doing skateboarding and motion sports, I think helped a lot during learning how to be a Steadicam operator, learning the flow of a shot. So anyway, I'll credit that for a little bit. So coming out of high school, I knew I wanted to get into cinematography. I went to Brigham Young University. I studied there for a little bit. I did an internship at the BYU studio.
Did you study film though?
I was studying film.
Like there's an
Theater
actual
and film
program?
was a program there, and I went into boot camp, which was just menial labor to kind of weed out the ones that they didn't want.
Nice.
And went through that. Did some school. Took 2 years off to do a religious mission. Came back, and there was an opening in the camera department, and jumped on that like fresh.
There was
pancakes.
opening in the camera department where?
At the BYU studios.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
So they were in connection with the LDS Church, which would do these videos,
Okay. All right. Yeah.
And so I interned with them for free for a while, learned a few skills, and then they started paying me.
What were you doing as an intern? Just like.
So as an intern, I was, I'd go fetch stuff. They taught me how to load. So I learned how to load and.
So this was film.
Carry equipment around. Yeah, this is film back in
16 millimeter? Or?
This would have been, mostly 16 at the time.
Cool.
And it was a good experience.
Yeah.
It was. So here's a story. I'm on set for like the very first time, and I had gone on my mission to France, and there was somebody who was a stand-in who was French, and so I thought that would just be great to like chat in French, right? And the first assistant came over, and he's like, "The DP says you're a talker." He doesn't like talkers. So from that moment,
lesson learned.
I was the quietest person in the world. The first assistant had little hand signals for everything, like long eyepiece. I'm holding my finger by my eye. Yeah. Different, all the hand signals for numbers, for the slate, for oh my gosh, I was the quietest little mouse. Anyway, I wanted to be in the industry, so
yeah. And that thing that you were working on was a feature or
no? These were just
instructional
like
videos,
just little videos, little motivational videos and commercials,
right.
and
Gotcha. Okay.
Anyway, so that's where I got my break,
Yeah.
and then I met some people, and ended up leaving school when I got offered a job as a second assistant, and I figured that's the job I wanted when I graduated, and I already had it. So I chased that. This is in Utah, so I had moved there from Maryland. And Utah was full of like movies of the week. Everything that they didn't have the money to shoot in LA would go to Utah.
Gotcha.
It was like the non-union work. We don't have a big enough budget. Let's go to Utah. We'll shoot it up there. So anyway, I did my round of that. Met some great people. I met Mark Emery Moore there. He was also a mentor in terms of Steadicam.
Yep.
Don Muirhead as well. And I got interested in Steadicam. So I was a first assistant by then. I met you, Dead Man's Walk, and it was probably shortly after that I started saving money and buying pieces. As a first assistant, I'm like, okay, I got my post.
Buying pieces and putting things together.
Right, I got my post. Yeah. I got my monitor. I mean, if the Steadicam monitor was like $15,000 back then.
It was a different world. And also, it wasn't like you could just go on the internet and buy it.
Right.
Yeah, someone had to be selling one.
Right.
And,
There's no, yeah.
I don't even know how we found out about stuff, actually, now that I think about it.
Exactly. It was like, anyway, so bits and pieces and so forth. And then I got this huge break. Once I had all my gear together, I shot one free commercial for like Utah Department of Transportation or something. And then Touched by an Angel was in season 4 I think season 4.
Was that a Utah show?
And that was a Utah show.
Okay. And
it had become popular. And I went in and I talked to the UPM and I'm like, hey, I'm available. And he's like, great, let's do it. And I think he just wanted to pay somebody less. He didn't want to bring in an operator from LA.
Sure.
Didn't want
Yeah.
There's a huge cost to that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so...
were there not other Steadicam operators in Utah? Like, were you an anomaly?
There were, I want to say there were 3. One I never knew. I knew a name, and everybody was like, oh, he's in LA. I've never met him.
Okay.
The other one I had assisted for, and he was just busy.
Yeah.
And then the third was not very good. So
there you go.
I fit the gap,
Yep.
you know. And so anyway, I got on the show, and it was I was terrible.
As a full-time Steadicam
As
operator?
a Steadicam operator.
Like B camera Steadicam or were you
B
just...
camera.
Okay. All right.
B camera.
And that's how you learned.
That's how I learned. Yeah. Well, I've heard your stories too about running around in your apartment. So
No,
I was doing the same in,
You were
in my
getting paid to do
backyard.
it.
But at the same time, in my backyard, I had my 2x4 set up with a magazine shaped like 2x4 shaped like a mag and a
Yep.
thing and a camcorder on top and walk forward, walk backwards. My wife being my subject. And
Yeah,
so,
that's how you do it, right?
anyway, you learn
Yeah.
that way, and then through through 6 seasons of Touched by an Angel.
Oh, wow.
Learned how to.
You did 6 seasons
I did
of that?
6 seasons. Yeah,
I had no idea.
that went forever. That was actually. I mean, people in LA might not be into it, but the Breadbasket of America loved that show.
It was big.
It was
yeah.
like top 10. For
Oh, I
4
knew
years.
it was around for a while. I just didn't know you did that many seasons
Yeah.
of it. Oh, okay. So by the time you came out of that, you'd figured it out.
I was
Yeah.
We think we figured it out
Wow.
until another 5 years go by, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I wasn't very good back then either." And then you go another 5 years, and like, I should have been better.
You convinced yourself that you figured it out. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Good.
Anyway, so that brought that was one of my big breaks.
Yeah.
I've had a couple.
Yeah.
And in terms of why I got into Steadicam is, I think similar to what I've heard you say, which is like when you see it for the first time, and you're like, "That's cool."
Yeah.
Like I want to do that.
Yeah.
Right. And I think part of my personality trait is I like to do stuff that's different, that's hard. Other people can't do it.
Yeah.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Watch me. Right. And so Steadicam is one of those things. Like not everybody can put it on, and even the people who can put it on, not every one of those people can actually make it work.
100%. Yeah.
So,
So you did Touched by an
Where was
Angel.
I?
And
Yeah.
then you came out of that.
so Touched by an Angel, and then I went right over to Everwood,
That was a TV
which is
show?
a Warner Brothers show. Treat
Okay.
Williams
Oh, okay.
recently
Yeah.
passed.
Sort of remember that.
So that was a couple of years on that show.
And that was in Utah also.
That was also in Utah. The trick about Everwood was they had a bad Steadicam experience. And we've probably, Steadicam operators may have run into those producers or directors who've had a bad experience. And they're like, I hate Steadicam. It's so wonky. It's, the horizon, blah, blah, blah. And to jump back, a little self-deprecating here, but to jump back to Touched by an Angel, I worked with Timothy Van Patten, who famous director of Sopranos, and went on to do wonderful man, family man, great person. Love him, but he nicknamed me Lost Horizons, which is a pretty hard nickname to take. But honestly, like the DP telling me that I'm a talker, him telling me Lost Horizons made me double down. Right? Okay, I'm going to get rid of that nickname.
Yep.
Right. So on Everwood, they had a bad experience with Steadicam. And so every Steadicam move had to be done as if we laid dolly track. So it had to be like straight or dance floor or something like that. So there were no like circular moves. It was all angles.
Yeah.
Right. And so when we walked down the sidewalk, there was never a frontal shot because they'd have to walk over the track. It was always like a raking angle. And it was the goal to never let anybody know that we did it on Steadicam.
Wow. Okay.
Right. So that was
Yeah.
high standards for that show. But then it was also one of those things that was a challenge.
Sure. Yeah.
Don't let the producers know we're on Steadicam.
Well, and that's the guy who taught me Steadicam, Bob Crone, used to say the irony of what we do is if we do it well, nobody knows we ever did it. And
I love
so it's
that.
that thing of like, is this a Steadicam shot? That's what you want people to do, right?
Right.
As opposed to like, God, that's a Steadicam shot.
Right. You don't know until you see it's done poorly.
Yeah. But I love the fact that like if someone told me there was a show Everwood that was just hardcore crazy about how the Steadicam looked, I never would guess because you'd think it's just I don't really remember it, but I sort of remembered it being out there and it, it kind of didn't make a huge mark. It was just one of those shows that kind of came and went. But that's great. And so you just had to dial in your technique on that.
That was definitely like a technique deal.
Yeah.
And the DP like checking up, oh, don't do that move. It looks like you're not on a dolly.
Wow.
I'm like, oh, okay.
That's great.
So I think that show really dialed in the precision and the tech.
Well, it set the bar high, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
And my bar was set high because in order to get a job in Utah from a crew that came from LA, you had to be very good. You had to be 2 times, 3 times better than the person they would bring in for them to hire you.
Yeah.
Because there's a stigma being outside of LA.
The local guy.
It's like, oh, we're getting a local crew.
God,
Can't we bring our own
guy.
key grip or gaffer or operator?
No, that's true.
So, and same thing said. Now that I work in LA and I travel,
Yep.
same thing goes through my mind.
Sure.
Do they know how things work?
And the irony is like, look, obviously I have that too. But then there's, because behind that is, well, if they're the good, why don't they live in L.A.? But now, of course, I'm like, well, I know why they don't live in L.A. They're smart to live there. They're probably the best people in the world.
They made a life choice that I haven't realized
much more
yet.
intelligent than I am. But no, I get it. Yeah, it makes sense. So, and I never thought about the fact that, you were the local guy, which has its own stigma. So you got to step up and prove to them the local guy actually knows what he's doing.
You had to be way better.
Yeah.
So, and somebody was in a scouting van with, I'll say some of the authorities.
That's fine.
some of the leaders of the show.
Yep.
And they actually heard, and this is a little self-tooting, but it was a new director, and they're like, "Oh, your Steadicam operator is really good."
This is on Everwood?
This is on Everwood.
Okay.
Your Steadicam operator is really good. And the response was, "Don't tell him, because he'll leave the show and get something better."
Nice.
Don't tell him. I have nobody to compare myself with in the town, right?
Hey, look, as long as they think that, you may not think that, but as long as they think that, that's great. Good.
So I found that out later.
And so how long did you do that?
That was 2 seasons.
Wow. Okay.
And then I ended up leaving that show. Difference of opinion on certain things.
It happens. All right.
It might be the only time I've ever left the show for that kind of a thing.
All right.
But that led me to getting a job. In fact, just the other day, I found a business card for a Rooster restaurant in Ogden, Utah, and on the top,
for a what restaurant?
Rooster.
Is that a chain?
It's like a brew pub restaurant.
Okay.
It's a one-off, right?
I got you. Okay.
On the top, it says Chris Baffa, John Scott, Dwayne Milwaukee. And it was like, it had some dates on it, right?
Yeah.
And that was the call that I got from Chris Baffa, because he was doing Unaccompanied Minors.
Cinematographer Chris Baffa.
Yeah. DP, great man. He was doing a feature in Salt Lake City, up in the mountains, right, about some kids getting stuck at an airport.
Yeah.
So I rolled from Everwood right into that.
So you're saying it's on there because you were on the phone writing down their information?
Yeah, I was at lunch for Everwood.
I'm not going to ask you how to spell Milwaukee.
I can spell it, I know. So that's what I meant.
So Dwayne. that was the name of the cinematographer. John Scott was the
John
camera
Scott was
operator,
the operator,
and Dwayne was the first AC. Yeah, all very good friends of mine. And you know, I gave Chris your name for that show.
Did you really?
Yeah. So basically, I want more checks from you.
Yeah,
no,
exactly.
Chris, I don't know. I don't think he called me for the show because I don't think they were going to let him take someone because they were bringing John. I think he said, "Do you know anybody?"
Right.
And this was after we had done. You were a Steadicam operator, so clearly it was after we had worked together. And I said, "Oh, you should call Andrew." Yeah. And he called you and I guess met with you or talked with you. And I remember after he came back, him going, "That guy's amazing," and I was like, "Damn it!"
I've got a lead up here for the audience. A little Well, I'm going to ask you a question in a few minutes to see if the reality of the situation of Glee is true.
It's true.
But first of all, thank you for putting my name out there for Chris.
I just want to say ahead of time, no matter what happens, I'm responsible for everything in your career. Everything good. All the bad ones, forget about it. No.
I appreciate it. I mean, really, that's how it works.
But look, that's what we all do is like, because you never want to give the name of someone bad. I mean, well, unless you want them to fail and you take the job.
Right. There's that way.
No, but you want to give the best person available. And I mean, in fairness, I didn't know anybody else in Utah anyway, so you were definitely the best person available. But no, I remember him saying like that this guy's really good. So you worked with and Chris is fantastic, but he's a demanding DP. He wants the frames that he wants, and those are good guys, John Scott, and I worked with them on a bunch of stuff, mainly Nip Tuck, but they're really good guys who have gone on to do all sorts of things.
Yeah, they've all gone on to be very successful. Yeah. And I think that's part of their work ethic. You know, Chris
100.
likes to do things proper.
Absolutely.
He's super loyal to his crew.
Yes.
Excellent man. He's anyway.
Yeah.
Can't stop there.
And very talented.
Super talented.
Very talented.
So I'll tell you where I think I won Chris over.
Yeah.
We're shooting off of a snowmobile. First time I'd ever done it. Garfield Mount snowmobile. And there's a canoe full of children, well, stunties, sliding down the ski resort
in snow,
Utah.
A canoe.
Yeah. So we're in the mountains, canoe,
okay,
stunties sliding down a mountain, right? And I'm in a snowmobile chasing along with it, trying to get like a three-shot.
Does not sound like a good idea.
I was young. I didn't know better. I've done a lot of things
I would have done
in my
it too.
young career that I would never do again. This one I would do again, but maybe a different setup.
Yeah.
So we do it once. The snowmobile like almost pitches me off. Like, so we get down to the bottom of the hill, and you know how the weight on a Steadicam is balanced for like neutral. Well, the snowmobile takes a hard left, and I'm on the back left side. And so my rig just wants to go, centrifugal force, plus it's tipping that way, and I'm just about falling off. Anyway, we do the first take, not as good as I wanted it to be, and we pull the snowmobile up to Chris, and he's thinking that I'm going to say, this is stupid, we should not do this.
We're not doing this.
This is ridiculous, right? And we pull up, and I say to Chris, I can do that way better. Give me another shot. And I think that's where I won him over.
Yeah, he went, wow, this guy's dumb enough to want to do this
He's
again.
going to do it again.
He's going to do it again. That's great.
So
that's how, and it's funny. Now, here's a question for you. What would you say now?
Oh, I'd still say the same.
You'd still say
I
the
can
same
do
thing?
better. I can,
Okay,
let me do that again. I can do better. Right. No, we want to make the best. You know, that's our personality.
It's one of the things that when I talk to people about safety, is the biggest problem with safety is none of us ever want to say no. You know, we always want to figure out a way to do it. And sometimes it's just, this wasn't well planned out. There has to be, but nobody ever wants to say no. Because it's like you said, you want to do Steadicam because it's hard. It's like it's the challenge of it. Okay, this seems impossible, but it's not. How do we do this?
Right.
And and that's often how we get into problems. Is we end up trying something we probably shouldn't because we want to be the ones to do it.
Right.
And did you get it better?
Oh yeah, we did probably 5 or 6 more takes and wide shot, close up, that kind of thing.
I got to imagine. All I'm thinking of, I mean, depending on I don't know about the run, but it just seems like Steadicam on a snowmobile. It seems like the snowmobile itself has to be going up and down quite a bit, probably because of the snow. So it just seems like you'd just be holding on to that thing pretty hard. We might have bottomed out once or twice on batteries. Covered in bags. And, taking snow out of the battery pack.
And the speed, too, was a wind factor on the rig.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that.
It was pretty much just like hanging on. It's almost like back when people would bring a Steadicam in a helicopter when they didn't want to get a Tyler mount.
God. Yeah, they're back to safety problems,
Yeah. Oh, I got a story. Anyway. Yeah. So back to the safety thing, it's like stunt people put themselves in unsafe. That's part of the job, right?
Yeah.
And so we're not stunt people, but there's a certain risk involved.
Sure.
And we're like, we want to get that.
Yeah.
I've got a shot that we're going to try to rip off a DVD.
Yeah.
Today that was an explosion where it went way bigger than we ever thought.
Those are always fun.
Right. And the story behind that is when I was a focus puller, my very first focus pulling shot was on a 17 mil of a car crash.
Okay.
Right. And so I'm on the knob. Cars come together, they hit, and this is what you hear, tink, because my hand just put it to infinity because I was startled.
Oh,
right?
you were startled
I got
by
startled by the crash.
By the crash.
And my hand flinched, and it went to infinity. Now, on a 17 mil, doesn't matter.
Get away with it. Yeah. But again, you learned from that.
But then I learned from that, and I was like, never again will I let something else influence my work. And so we're doing this explosion of an outhouse. Right. Cuba Gooding comes around a corner, and I do this little Steadicam roundy, and it goes into a 50-50. And the other character says, oh my gosh, what else could go wrong? And Cuba's like, don't say that. And then all of a sudden this outhouse just blows up. Right. Well, there's a school bus that's like 20 yards ahead. And they said, oh, nothing's going to go past the school bus. So we're in the 20-yard like safe zone.
Famous last words.
We had boards flying so far behind us. Cuba took off, right, which is a smart thing. Anyway, all the actors took off. Everybody turned around, and there's a video of me just standing there
holding your ground.
Just standing there, holding my ground. And it all goes back to that car crash on a 17 mil. And I told myself, I am not flinching.
It's funny because I've done stuff before where afterwards people go, how come you're not flinching when this stuff happens? And the reality is, and I answer them as I go, I don't know, but I think I'm just so focused on my job that I don't allow myself to think about that other stuff. And I sort of assume that other people are doing their the grip is next to me, hopefully pushing something away that's coming at me or whatever. I remember on St. Vincent, it's not a safety thing really, but we had this dodgeball game. And they had to throw one of those, that big rubber ball, the red rubber ball. I don't probably had a name, but everybody had them in grade school and kickball and all that. They had to throw it right at the camera. And so I was operating on the eyepiece, and they put an X on my head for the kid to, thinking, by the way, that the kid wouldn't nail it. But, thinking, and we get, the camera's plexiglassed up and blah, blah, blah. And he throws a couple, and one of them just comes barreling down, and I'm thinking it's gonna hit the plex, but I figure, well, I'm not, whatever, and it hits me dead on the head.
They didn't put you behind the plex.
The plex just came up. Now I'm like, why didn't it go up higher? I don't remember why. And the funny thing is, so it's like ding, and I just held the frame, and they call cut, and I sort of lean back, and I look over at the grip, and he's standing next to me. I can't remember who it was, and I said, why didn't you bat that away? And he said, well, it didn't look like it was coming towards the lens. And I was like, yeah, but it came in my head.
You're my safety.
But again, someone was like, why didn't you flinch? And I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm not that smart.
You just do it.
Yeah, you just do it. It's exactly right.
Yeah, and you trust your people.
But you trust your people. That's the thing is you prep it, you make sure that everybody's got their pieces, and then you do your job. But yeah. That's exactly right.
I have a fun story with your dodgeball thing, but it was on Glee and a cup full of confetti.
I was going to say, was this a slushy situation?
It was essentially a fake slushy for
one
one of the regional competitions they were. And at the end of the song that they sing and dance to, they throw cups of confetti out of the audience as part of the performance, right? And so I went up to the lead and I said, hey, at the end, would you just throw that confetti right at me?
You're on Steadicam.
I'm on Steadicam doing like a pit pass sort of thing. And she's like, oh, yeah, okay, great. And in my mind, right at me meant into lens. And in her mind, right at me meant exactly what I said, right at me. So we do the shot. She comes over at the end of the song and dance and just nails me in the face with a cup of confetti. Nothing on the lens.
So you got a mouthful of confetti, no visual information to show it. That's pretty classic.
So the lesson there is to communicate better.
Communicate a little better. Right. Yeah, that's pretty funny. So you did that movie with Chris Baffa.
Yeah. So, and here we
well.
come up to the big question, right?
yeah.
So I do the movie with Baffa, and then I go back and I think I did High School Musical 2.
Okay.
Hopefully answered the questions that were
Yeah,
left pondering.
well, apparently
in
not, because there was
Musical.
High School Musical 3, so that must have answered all the questions.
Oh my
but,
gosh! So
and I have to assume that High School Musicals sort of set you up for your eventual Glee thing, because you were doing big musical numbers and whatnot.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Although, when I did that, looking back, I don't think I did it very well.
And
knowing what I know
were
now.
you A camera, steady cam on that? B camera, steady
That
cam?
one I was B camera.
Okay.
Yeah, Brian Sullivan was A camera.
All right.
And it was pretty standard back then to the Steadicam was the B guy.
The B guy, yeah.
Right.
I always sort of lose track of when that became. I mean, I know when ER I was, but that was not normal, and I don't know how long after that it sort of became normal, but somewhere in there, early 2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, ER was definitely stood out as a Steadicam show.
There's no question about it.
I mean,
you kidding me? I had Guy B in here the other day.
Emmy-winning Dave Comite sitting across from me for
whatever.
ER.
I had Guy B here the other day, and we were talking about it, and I was saying, how much you did on it. And he goes, well, you did too. And I was like, nah, I just didn't screw up. Actually, you kind of set the bar where it was, and it really is. It's hard for people, I think, now who weren't around before that to understand how groundbreaking that was. I mean, just the stuff that when I went in, the stuff that they thought was normal, I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
Right.
And then it becomes normal. It's like anything else, like Glee probably. Like at the very beginning, it was a huge learning curve probably, and then you're just like, oh, we're doing this now. And
right.
Yeah.
I would say ER, you tell me if I'm wrong, but ER was maybe one of the first shows where Steadicam became normal on set all the time.
There's no question about it. There was nothing like that before that. Not on that level where it was used instead of as, hey, we need Steadicam on Thursday or something, where it was really like, this is an intrinsic part of the storytelling. Yeah.
Right.
Which that's why I say to people, like, I just lucked into it. I mean, it really, to be able to, I'll take the props for not dropping the ball, but just to be given that opportunity at that time, it's ridiculous. I sort of, I don't know what I did to deserve it, but
that was awesome. How far after Dead Man's Walk was that? Because I think we were communicating, and I heard you had got on it. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing.
I got in the IR on 96.
Oh, so Dead Man's Walk was 94.
So like 2 years prior or something like that.
That's amazing.
Yeah. No. Yeah,
we all get good opportunities. I
we
think
all get
that's
well,
one of them.
And it's funny. I find myself as I'm doing more of these podcasts of just repeating myself, but I'll repeat it for you, and hopefully people are listening to everyone, and they're like, "He already said that." But the more people that I talk to, especially the older people, the older folks who are some of them retired or had huge careers. They just stumble into stuff, and some of it's earned, but a lot of it's not. And it's more about, like, I've stumbled into this. I got to kind of fake it till I make it, and then I got to like really, And it's just time and time again. It's not like, I put in my chops and I this and then the other. It's like, no, this guy was sick and I took over and they liked me, And
so many of those stories,
which I know is frustrating sometimes for younger operators, because what I always tell people is, like, there are no answers because every situation is different. It's just, I was talking to, did you ever work with Tommy Shalami?
No.
West Wing and all that? Great. And I was talking with him the other day, and he said something really interesting, which was, he said, look, if you're a PA, be the best PA you can be. Don't be a PA who wants to be a director. You can be a PA who wants to be a director, but don't tell people that. Mm-hmm. Be a PA. And then when they look at you, they go, you know what? That guy's just hustling every minute. We should give him, let's get him in here and do this or that, and that's how. And I think that's you just do the best you can at all times,
I totally agree.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're preparing yourself when the opportunity arrives,
be ready for it.
Then you're the lucky one.
Yep.
But you're not lucky because you've been preparing.
That's exactly right.
You've done your best, like that PA, right?
Yeah. George Clooney used to say that he was the biggest 20-year overnight sensation in the history of film because he'd done so many failed pilots and so many failed movies before he became this overnight star. And he was like, I've been doing this for 20 years. You just finally started paying attention. Anyway.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
So you finished that movie with Chris Baffa.
Okay, so I finished that movie, High School Musical 2.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And then I got a call in 2008. Things had become quiet. I think it was writer strike back then, 2007, 2008.
Yep.
And he had called me to see if I could come down and do a few things here and there, and I never could. And then he calls and he says, "Hey, I'm doing this pilot. I have to break away from Nip Tuck to do it, so my crew's staying there. Can you come down and be the Steadicam beat guy?" And I'm like, "Yeah, great." And so I came down and did that, and it was like, so I'm coming from Utah, coming to LA, 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. I met Ryan Murphy, very young Ryan Murphy, Ian Brennan, Brad Falchuk, and they put together this really cute, interesting pilot. And it was fun. And I thought, okay, that's great. Done. Back to Utah.
Back to Utah.
Right. I never had a plan to live in LA.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went back to Utah, and it was quiet. And so that was October 2008. And then in probably January of 2009, I get a call from Chris, and I think it was a courtesy call. And this is where the question's going to come to Dave.
Okay.
Of what I've been thinking all these years.
Yeah.
So he calls and he's like, "Hey, I just want you to let you know, it's been picked up, and we're going to start shooting in February. And since you did the pilot, I'd like to offer you the show." Totally thinking, no way is Andrew going to move to California and do the show.
Yeah.
And it had been quiet, so I was like, "Yeah, I'd love to do the show." And there was like this silence, and he's like, "Oh, okay, great. All right, we'll put it together. Awesome. Dwayne's going to be the focus puller, and this is going to happen, and that, and blah, blah, blah." And so anyway, I came down and did 13 episodes, and then a break, and then 9. So here's the question. Since BAFA was quiet, I've been thinking all these years that he had Dave Comides lined up to do the show. And that when I said I was going to do it, that put that off the rails.
I don't think he had me lined up. I know he called me for the pilot, and I couldn't do it because I was going home to Connecticut for some reason, and I couldn't do it, and I couldn't change it. And I think I may have said you should call Andrew because he had just worked with you, and he was probably already thinking of that, but he's thinking, I'll get a local guy versus whatever. To the best of my knowledge, I mean, it's possible he talked to me about it, but I don't think so. No.
Okay.
I think the silence was probably more like,
Really?
You really want to move to LA? That's my guess.
Okay. Well, there we go.
Sorry about that.
It's answer. Well, I mean, the fact that you recommended me, how big is this check going to be that I have to write you, Dave?
Well, I have to say it is getting bigger. Although now that we didn't have, you took my job on Glee. Yeah. No, I always assumed that you did the pilot, you nailed the pilot, and he called you, of course, and said, "I want you to do." Well, he did, obviously, but that was just a fait accompli. But I would assume you'd have to ask Chris this, that he probably was calling you thinking there's no way he wants to come and do this or he wants to move here,
I mean, I think it had to be a little bit of maybe he would or he wouldn't have called, right?
Yeah, no, obviously.
Like maybe a little more than a courtesy, but...
No, but that said, also knowing Chris, he's the type of person who's like the right thing to do. Even though I think, I'm not saying he was thinking this, but even if he thought even if you had said, "I'm never moving to LA," he's the type of person who would have called and said, "Look, I know you're not going to move to LA, but I just you deserve this opportunity." Like he's a good guy that way, so I
Definitely.
can see that. Yeah,
I could see that too. Yeah, he's a gentleman. So
the reality is, then he got off the phone and he's like, "Andrew's taking it." I'm like, "Damn it, Andrew!" No, that's not at all. So then you came down here and you did that show Glee, and that never went anywhere, right?
I know Glee never went anywhere. It was nothing, and
that must have been a dream, though.
It was a dream.
I mean, because between the Steadicam and the big musicals and just, the look of the show and
I mean, here's the deal.
Show.
Coming out of Salt Lake City.
Yeah.
And the stages we use there, the warehouses that we soundproof and so forth.
Yeah.
And walking on the Paramount lot with the water tank painted up and all these ancient stages with walls that are 3 feet thick.
It's the dream, right?
And I walk onto stage 14 and I'm cruising over and it's like 45 feet up to the perms.
Yep.
And there's ropes and cable and coming down to this beautiful high school set. This giant smile comes over my face.
Which also, by the way,
gosh,
you're walking onto a Ryan Murphy design set too. It's just like it's been designed to the T, right? I mean, he didn't, his people.
Yeah, he's very
beautiful,
particular in terms of detail.
That's pretty cool, though.
Yeah,
that is pretty cool. It's when I first drove onto the Warner Brothers lot and my name was there, it was like, whoa,
it's kind of a big deal, right?
It's kind of cool. Like,
wow, I'm actually doing this.
Yeah, right.
Like this is my career now.
Yeah, really.
Even though it was already 15 years in.
So with all those musical numbers, was there a learning curve with that?
Yeah.
Are you a musician?
Big time. I'm not a musician.
Okay.
I'll go back to the comment about flow in terms of skateboarding
Sure.
and rhythm,
Yeah.
which Steadicam is definitely linked to those words. And there was a total learning curve, and it came from all parts of production. Like the first song, the Don't Stop Believin',
In the pilot.
we shot from 4 different directions, all separate time, from the front, from the side, and that was just how we did it. And we took a whole day, maybe longer, to shoot it, right?
Sure.
And gradually it became a show where you could shoot at any angle, any motion, just go with it, right? And so that was a development. I think we found that fully in like season 2, where we were doing like 360s and, just going for it. And it was a freedom that was like having wings.
And when you say going for it, meaning you've got a design for the shot, but in the moment you're just sort of following your instincts?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was definitely an instinct show. There's so much happening in a dance performance that, I mean, you could storyboard it, but the time and the effort that would be a waste. You
So
just go in and you follow your instincts.
I was just going to say, so did it become basically, especially for newer directors or whatever, it's like now we do Andrew will go in and sort of paint it, and then we'll pick up the moments that we need?
Yeah, I mean, basically on Glee, a stage performance when they're in the auditorium, which we built stage 16 on season 2, we had sort of a setup where we'd have a 30-foot techno crane on one side. We'd have a dolly track in the middle. We'd have maybe a camera in the wings, right? It was like a 3-camera day when we would do music. And then we would lens in. And then we would do, if there was a special, like if we needed an overhead or if we needed to slide into camera or whatever. And then we would push even farther. We would do like a pit pass, which is like where the band would be, right? So we're low angles with the lights and stuff behind. And then maybe some side angles from the wings. And then they would get me in there with faces, because a lot of these songs were about the relationships between the characters, what they're feeling during these songs. All the songs had some sort of meaning to the story. Mm-hmm. And then at the very end, it became normal to do a Steadicam pass, and which is super fun because this was at the end. I knew the routine pretty well, and I would essentially design some sort of like oneer situation. Like if there was going to be one shot for this whole song, you're going to see it right now. And
so you come up with something that could
fun.
actually work as a oneer, and then they'll take the pieces if they want it or not.
Yeah, I mean, they never used any of these as a oneer.
No, but still.
But for me, it was entertaining and also fun to try and, create that. So going back and forth from lyrics to feet to hands and honestly, the learning curve with dance, and I don't think a lot of operators know this, is there's certain sizes that you need to use for directors and choreographers to be happy. Like, honestly, it's like we don't try to cut ankles off.
You're talking about frame sizes.
Frame sizes.
Because you've got to be able to see certain body movements.
Yeah. And on High School Musical 2, I got in trouble. Kenny Ortega, nicest guy, great choreographer and director. I was like, they would do like something with their hands where their hands go out and their hand would leave frame.
Ooh,
that was like, put me in, decapitate me.
But how would you know if...
Right? That was like, what are you doing? Right? And I'm like, what am I doing? Right?
You tell me.
And it was like, keep the hands in the frame. That's part of the dance. Right? And so these are just things that are like, oh, okay. Yeah. And feet, right? So you don't shoot a dance like cutting the feet off. That's
sure.
The feet are the dance.
But you wouldn't know that till someone's told you it or you've made the mistake, right?
Right. So we would always like do a performance from full stage, and then it would be full group. No feet or hands leave the frame.
Gotcha.
And then it would be like, okay, 2 characters.
Yeah.
And then that would become, like a cowboy or something. So it was either you hold the feet or you go into a cowboy. There's not like a dancing on your knees kind of a situation, cut. And then, obviously you're close up and follow
So when you're up there and you're free-forming Steadicam, you're moving, you're panning, you're tilting. It's all you. But you said you had the 30-foot techno on stage and you did performance pieces. Talk to me about that, about working with your dolly group is Corey, right?
Yeah, Corey Corona,
Yep.
and then Jimmy Salduti would be on the pickle.
Oh, I didn't know. Duty was. Oh,
Yeah.
God, I didn't know he was on the pickle.
Yeah.
So,
well, we also had Ace.
I don't know.
Ace Dominguez. Dominguez.
I don't know Ace. But,
Adrian Dominguez.
For anybody listening, the pickle is the switch or button knob, I guess.
Yeah,
What do you call
telescoping
it? But it
control.
telescopes the camera in and out. So you got one person on that. You got one person on the bucket. Corey was probably on the bucket.
Corey was
moving
on the
around,
bucket.
and you're on headsets operating around. Did you guys freeform a lot?
A lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we would take notes. So by the end, there's a huge process for the music. They would send us time-coded lyrics. They would send us color-coded lyrics to who was singing when.
Whoa.
By name, color-coded. They would also send sometimes a rehearsal tape. And then they would send the music. So we would have the original version
So
that
you'd
we
know
could
the song
listen
ahead
to.
of time, yeah.
So that was like a daily thing. On the drive into work, listen to the songs.
The music
of the
was
day.
the original song, not their. They hadn't recorded theirs yet.
No, their version.
Oh, so you'd have their version.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes it would be like a temp track that somebody else had done
Sure.
for them, and sometimes it was the original version. We were on a pretty tight schedule with all
Yeah.
of that. So
Yeah.
sometimes temp. So we would use that to create moves, specific moves for the crane for certain things, and everything else was freeform.
Yeah.
Which was totally like up to any of these dolly grips.
So basically,
we're on.
you'd talk them into stuff, but otherwise they'd just go, let's come over, and you just kind of follow. They'd move the crane, and you'd do something cool there, and then you'd say, let's go in for a close up and whatever. So it's really back and forth.
There was a lot of back and forth.
Yeah.
And then, so we would design stuff together, and then we would also I would give them a pass. Like they would give me a Steadicam pass. I'm like, okay,
Cool.
I would say, take me for a ride.
Great. I love
Guys,
it.
take me for a ride. And they would do whatever they thought was cool, and I would operate it. So it was pretty fun, and I think for them it was really fun.
I will say
they're in charge.
I don't know what it was on, but I did a show with Corey on Dolly, but it was long after Glee. And like from the moment that I started working with him, I was like, oh man.
He's incredibly good.
He's really good, but also he has confidence because obviously like you gave him the ability to do, what he wanted. He knows what he's doing. He knows how to move a crane. I mean, he's just really good. And he would come up with great stuff.
He's smooth and gets the emotion of it.
Total.
His whole thing with like timing and starts and stops, and
Is he a musician?
he is I don't think so.
Okay, interesting.
And I was sad to lose him because he moved to Atlanta.
I didn't know he moved to Atlanta.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's for family.
No, it makes sense. It doesn't
Yeah.
surprise me at all. But
Yeah.
he is a top-notch dolly and crane group.
Yeah.
and
I mean, so-
Duty is as well.
Judy and
actually,
Ace as
yeah.
well. But I worked mostly with Corey for better part of a decade, maybe more.
Yeah.
And there's something with a dolly grip who's grown up in the business being able to fix things by themselves, and those who've been told not to do anything until told.
Yeah.
And he's the kind of guy that you can trust, and he will just fix it.
Make it better.
He'll make it better. He'll make it cool. He's so good that he'll just do like a little push in at the end.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that was cool. Great. Thanks. And it's not like, why'd you do that? Nobody told you to do that. And so he just knows the feel, the story, the emotion of movement.
I just remember, and maybe he was he on Hollywood with me? I can't remember
Probably,
what it was,
yeah.
but we were on something together, and we'd do a crane shot, and then they'd do it again and again and again, and I'd start to get bored, and I'd go, well, let's try this, and then Corey, what do you want to do? You want to do something? And you go, yeah, what if we do that? I could do that, and it'd usually be better than what I came up with or whatever, but he was great because, like you said, he understands the story, which is the key to it. I always say, you can find 100 people who can move from A to B. You can't find 100 people who know why they're moving from A to B, and that's what makes all the difference.
Right.
Yeah, but he's in Atlanta now. I got to get more jobs in Atlanta.
There's definitely right. There's definitely. I think you either get it or you don't in terms of the speed of the motion and when. The
Yep.
timing and the speed is I think something you get or you don't get.
Yeah, you can teach that. You can work with someone to make it better, but they're either going to nail it or they're not. Yeah, and again, if you get someone like Duty on the pickle and you've got Corey on the bucket, the two of them are working so seamlessly. It's like I don't even understand how they do it, to be honest.
Right.
And I don't know if you feel this way, but I always look at it and I go, I think that if I had to do that, I probably couldn't, even though I do what I do on a Steadicam. But I don't have to tell anybody to do something on the Steadicam, just like my head tells my hand to do it.
Right, right. It's second nature.
Like, I don't think I could be half of that. I don't know that I'd be able to figure it out. I'd be stepping over someone else or something like that. But it's an incredible talent. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so did you? So you were like hardcore part of the process then on Glee, I would imagine, right?
Yeah. So that was maybe my first A-camera Steadicam situation.
Really? Wow.
Maybe one show before that where it was like, okay, the Steadicam is A-camera now. It's not B-camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was definitely super involved. And then Dwayne was the B-camera.
Dwayne Milwaukee?
Yeah, Dwayne Milwaukee.
Was
we worked together.
Was that the show he moved up on?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he
great
moved up
camera
to,
assistant, great operator, and now a great DP.
Right, yeah. Amazing.
Yeah.
And a wonderful person.
And a great person. Yeah.
So
some of the
we
best
worked
hair in the business. Dwayne, if you're listening,
Agreed.
I just want to put that out there.
Dwayne has the best
Actually,
hair.
Dwayne's wife, if you're listening. Actually, that whole group. I mean, Glee was basically all the folks, and Kenny, all the folks
Kenny
from Nip Tuck that I started. I worked with forever, and it's funny because like Dwayne was the B first, and Kenny was the B second, and so everybody moved up. But such a great group of people, all of them, and total characters, and a lot of fun to work with. But that's a big part of it, right? Like you just want to go to work with these people.
I mean, that makes all the difference, right? If you go to work and you're getting along with everybody and having a good time, or whether you're going into work and you're like fighting with departments or whatever. I mean, that's just like, I don't understand that anymore.
Yeah. It's stupid to say it, but watching Glee, I mean, I wasn't, what's it called? A Gleek?
A Gleek.
I was not a Gleek.
That's a fan. Right?
But I did used to watch. I watched a little bit, and then I'd get frustrated because I was like, "Why does Andrew get to do all this cool stuff? I don't want." And then I'd watch it, and I go, "I can't do that well. I'm not watching this anymore." But it just looked like it was a show that was probably a lot of fun to work on.
It was an incredible amount of fun.
Yeah.
I mean, one, it's about high school kids.
Well, yeah.
Which is
it's just goofy.
It's fun to reminisce about all the high school issues that we had. So it was funny. Sue Sylvester on the show, just ridiculously funny. Iqbal did anyway. Everything was great. The stories were great. The what they called the kids, which was the cast, they were awesome. They had all their little things.
And it was like the biggest show on television at the time,
it was
right?
Huge. It went from like, what is this, to like, then they were touring.
Yeah.
And getting mobbed.
Yep.
Like we shot in New York, and it was like, that was my first experience with like crazy paparazzi and like thousands of people.
You shot some of the concert stuff?
I shot some of the concert stuff, but we shot in New York for an episode, and there were thousands of people watching us film.
You know what? I think they may have called me for that because I was living back east. Did you call me for that?
This would have been early. This would have been like 2011.
I remember getting called. Chris Baffa called me, but maybe because you couldn't. You were thinking you weren't going to be able to make it or something like that. I don't remember what it was, but anyway, or maybe it was one of the concerts. But whatever, it doesn't make a difference.
It could have been
maybe it was one of the concerts.
Maybe it was the concert. You know who ended up doing it was Henry Turrell, because he was a certified 3D Steadicam guy.
Now I remembered. I think it was 3D, and I was like, I'm not doing 3D. That's too heavy. Yeah,
I saw that rig. I put it on once, and I was like,
no,
I'm glad you're doing this.
Henry Turrell's a really good guy for that because he's like built like a man, not like me. Yeah.
No, I was in the back on this like giant 1,000mm zoom with
that's hilarious
3D thing because I knew the lyrics.
Yeah,
and I know who sang the lyrics, so I was transferring close-ups.
Oh, anyway, wow. That's great. Yeah, I could imagine Chris calling, going, Chris, yes. Glee, yes. New York, yes. 3D, oh, no, that's not me. You had me.
No, thanks.
Oh, well. That's pretty cool. So, and you're just like thousands of screaming teens. And
yeah, that was my first experience with that on a show. And they have totally different rules with paparazzi in New York. They can stand right behind camera if you're on a public property.
There are one or two that are very specific that are problematic.
I see you met that guy.
When I moved, I'm not going to say his name, but when I moved to the East Coast, my first time on set on the streets, I was like, why isn't anybody getting? And they were like, whoa, no. And I think I actually said something because he kind of, I had the Steadicam on and he kind of pushed me at some point. And I was like, don't fucking, and they said, look, just so you know, that's a lawsuit right there. So just and
he's the lawsuit guy.
He's a lawsuit guy. And the amazing thing was, I mean, there would be actresses sitting in their chairs and he would be 4 inches away from them taking pictures. And I was like, there's got to be some point where this, I don't know, 4 inches, but whatever, but he'd be in their face. It was amazing to me. Yeah. And I tried to explain to them, I was like, yeah, L.A.? No, this would never fly in L.A.
You shut down the block, you shut down the block.
Exactly.
Right.
It's a different world. But New York's got that whole sort of like, this is New York, get off.
Right.
Get
Don't
off
tell
our
me
turf.
I can't walk down the sidewalk.
Exactly. It's
I'm
a different
walking
world.
here.
Yeah. But well, back to so that was an amazing ride. And how many years was that?
That was 6 seasons.
Wow.
We did 121 episodes. We did 742 songs.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Talk about like cutting your teeth doing music videos.
Incredible.
Back in the day.
Yeah. No, well, you're doing music videos and it's dramatic, so you're learning story. I mean, music videos are still at the end of the day just music videos, but you're storytelling and everything else.
Yeah.
And so that sort of cemented you in the Ryan Murphy world, yeah?
I think so.
Because that's been a ride for you.
Ryan's been very loyal to me. He brought me on, I want to say, all of his new shows for quite some time.
Bill Pope called me to do. What was the movie? The Band, The Boys in the Band.
The Boys in the Band.
Boys in the Band. Bill Pope called me to do that, and I was talking to him about it, and he said, I got to talk to this one guy first. And I knew Ryan Murphy was directing it. And I said, is it Andrew Mitchell? And he goes, yeah, why? And I said, because he's going to do the show. And he goes, what do you mean? And I said, well, I'm just telling you, if he's available and he wants to, he's doing the show because it's Ryan. And he goes, well, I don't know about that. And I was like, oh. So I sort of said, look, the two of them are a team and whatever. I said, but here's the thing I'll tell you. He's fantastic and you will love him and he will be a huge asset on top of which, because you and Ryan have a shorthand and et cetera, et cetera. And, and sure enough, that's what ended up happening.
That's an interesting call. And in terms of like operating, like when you're in the situation where production is bringing you on to the new DP,
you're a must hire for the DP. And also,
that's happened to me like several times.
Well, and with Bill Pope, who
I'll tell you how it went, because we got along swimmingly, I think.
Yeah, and by the way, he had clearly never heard of you before when he talked to me.
Right.
Or,
I mean, he was in a different world. He was in feature world and all that. So I call Bill right at the beginning, and this is not the first time that I've been put into somebody's lap. Yeah. Right, like this. And it's unpleasant. Like, oh, here's your show and here's your person. Right. You have to hire them. You're like,
so what do you do? How do you handle
So I call Bill and I'm like, hey, I'm Andrew Mitchell, blah, blah, blah. I know that they're putting my name out to you for this show. I said, I've worked with Ryan all these years. I'd love to do the show, but honestly, if you don't want me, I would rather not be there.
Wow.
Like honestly, if you don't want me there, it's not worth like the struggle that it will be on set. And so I said, so just let me know. I was just completely honest with him.
It's fair.
Right. Which is, I think, fair to anybody. And he's like, let's give it a go. And I think we had a great time.
But that's a smart way to deal with it, because I think that the key is that you're recognizing this is a really uncomfortable situation that's not normal.
Right.
And it's not your fault and it's not my fault. So let's just make the best of it.
Yeah. And Bill mentioned that. He's like, is this a normal thing? Right. And I'm like,
yeah, Bill doesn't generally get handed operators.
No. I mean, he's very prestigious. Yeah. And he's actually, I think, on your recommendation, become somewhat of a mentor to me as a DP.
Oh, that's right. We talked about that. Yeah.
So if I have a question
there are a few smarter people out there. I mean,
he has so much experience.
So much experience.
Very smart man in the film world and off. Very intelligent.
I'll tell you, I was shooting reshoots for Thor, something or other. I don't even know. It's Thor number 9 or whatever it was with him, and we were doing I don't even remember who the actor was, but we were doing this long lens remote head techno crane shot, and this actor's coming, and it's a tight shot, and the actor's coming up and dropping down to his knees and standing up and just all over the place. And he was different every time. And after about take 3, Bill comes over and he's eating something, and he stands next to me and he kind of looks at me and he goes, "So, just you going to keep his head in the whole time at some point, or is this a stylistic thing?" And I remember going, "Look, just so we're clear, I'm aware of what's going on. I'm working on it." It's like, "Okay, I'm just wondering, because it'd be great to keep his head in the whole time if you could." And he walks away, and it's just like, I mean, I love him, but he's demanding, which is what I like about him. Actually,
that's his casual way of like
actually, it was a very nice way, because he's done it. He can do it not nice, but no, he's. I personally like working for someone who's demanding, and but the funny thing is that even as he was walking over, I remember, I know what's coming, and I really felt like cutting him off and going, "Look, I know, like you don't have to say anything, like please," but he's a good guy.
He's a good educator in terms of what should happen.
Yeah,
he on Boys in the Band, he taught me some things that were
really
amazing.
Example?
So here's an example. So in the Ryan Murphy world, there's certain rules. One is no haircuts.
Yeah, I found that out pretty quickly.
Do not.
Yep.
He loves hairstyle. He loves fashion.
Yeah, and it doesn't make a difference what the frame is you have to see the hair.
Right. You want to see the hair. So you just adjust the size so that hair in the shot works. The other thing was, if like somebody's handling a prop, you keep the prop in the frame, right? Which is like, okay, that's that's a duh question. Like, yeah, of course you want to do that, right? So we're doing this shot, and this person's picking up like a drink, pours it, picks it up, and we're tight, right? And we're doing like this dolly up or a boom up. So he picks the drink, and the
you
dolly.
Mean you're tight on the drink.
Tight on the drink, going up to the lips,
going up to,
right?
Okay, gotcha.
Because there's a decision about whether he's going to drink it or how he feels about it.
Whatever.
Right? Yeah. And so I had grown up in this world of you follow that sucker, right?
I see.
Right.
Yeah.
And in another world, there's like this feature world where what I found where they don't move the camera past a certain speed. It seems like, oh, that's TV speed. Right.
Interesting.
Like, don't pan that fast. That's TV. Anyway, I'm like, whatever. So
well,
anyway, so I'm following the drink up, right? And it doesn't fit the scene, right? But I've been trained, like the motion doesn't fit the scene. It's too fast, right? So he comes up and he's like, "Andrew, let the drink out of your frame and re-find it before he drinks." Right? And I'm like, cool. Not only did this just become easier for me, but it makes sense.
Makes sense.
Right? So the drink gets poured, and as he picks it up, we rise, but we let the drink out of the frame, up to the body,
and then it comes
find
back
his face,
Yeah.
he drinks. And the speed of the shot matched the scene.
Yeah.
And that's just one of the little things that he taught me.
But Ryan didn't have an issue with that?
No.
Okay.
No. Ryan actually was producing that show. There was
that's right.
a different director.
I do remember that. Okay. Yeah.
But it made more sense.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And anyway, it's just those little things, and this is like after decades of me being an operator. I'm like, oh.
But again, like you said, but you were an operator in sort of one house with specific rules. So those were the rules that you learned, and then you got to get your head out of those rules.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, again, I sort of alluded to it. Like I came onto a Ryan Murphy show, and I put in a close-up, and someone came over and was like, "You can't cut the hair." And I was like, "What's going on?" They were like, "Oh, yeah." And I remember going, like, an email would have been great. Like, I could, if there are rules somewhere, it would have been great to know this, and then it wouldn't be a problem. But I was like, is there anything else I should know? And then, but yeah, and I mean, not to say anything about Ryan Murphy, there are all sorts of directors who have their own specific, whatever you want to call that, and DPs and whatever. But Bill, he knows what he's doing, and you're right. He is an excellent educator. I mean, he's a lot of fun to work with.
My big thing is, like, I think an operator should be somewhat of a chameleon, depending on who the director is, the producer, the show, and you adapt to what they like. Obviously, we want to provide them with what they want. Mm-hmm. So if they want the hair in the shot, you're like, okay, I'll frame appropriate size to have hair in the shot.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of times they're like, no, just tip up to the hair. And you're like, the bottom of the frame's on the chin. I'm like, I don't really want to do that, but how about a widen out, get some collar in there?
Yep. No, and I remember that was a thing for me, which was like, I don't think these are good frames. But at the end of the day, I always say I'd rather them be happy and me be unhappy than me be happy and them be unhappy because I've got a mortgage.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the end of it. But it's also, to me, I try to go with an open mind going, I don't like this close-up, but maybe there's something here that I haven't thought about, or maybe it tells this story better, or whatever it is. So you try to take something out of it, and go from there. So you did a bunch of Ryan Murphy among other things, and then eventually you started DPing, right?
Yeah.
And are you still operating? You sold your rig yet?
I haven't. I told myself one more full series. And I'll sell my rig. Yep. So I just got hired on for that series.
Yeah. Oh, you did?
as soon as the strike is over.
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
And then I will. And then
that's going to be it. Wow.
Dispatch the rig.
What? Out of curiosity, what's the reasoning? I mean, you've done great work, so it's not like I want to do.
It's
nostalgia?
No. Well, maybe if it was nostalgia, the rig would be in my office.
Okay, gotcha.
Which it still might happen.
Fair enough. Okay.
Just put it on a stand in my office, right? I think it's more a squirrel and acorns, where the squirrel is saving up acorns, and it's like a just in case.
Okay.
Like I still have a piece of property in a cabin in Utah, just in case. Right? I'm totally established here, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it's a just in case. I don't know.
Are you looking forward to it?
Like not doing it anymore?
No. Are you looking forward to doing a show as a Steadicam operator?
Good question.
Talk to me after the first day.
Here's the deal. I love doing Steadicam.
So yeah,
I absolutely love it. Right? It's very cool. And you can do some great things. And I did on American Horror Story. I DP'd and I did the Steadicam when I wanted it.
How'd that work out?
It was challenging because I was thinking about a lot of things at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. In fact, I got called out by an actress on Ratched. I'm doing a shot. And I was doing Steadicam on something like second unit or something. And I was looking at my monitor for framing, and then I looked up at the actress for lighting.
Ooh. Yeah. And she called you out
we
for
cut,
that?
And she's like, Andrew, I know what you're doing, but you can't look at me.
Oh, I see. Oh, while you were filming.
While I'm filming. Right.
Gotcha.
And I was like, done. You know? So, and then on the other hand, I was way too detail oriented back then. And so anyway, you cut your teeth in new things. And so.
All right, there you go. We haven't talked a lot about new operators, and when you were a new operator, and things that you learned and things that you can pass on. You got any tips?
Well, I'll tell you how I got my first job.
Yeah. First job as an operator?
This would have been Untouched by an Angel.
Okay.
I had been first assistant, and they were bumping me up every once in a while. And
you were already on the show, you're saying?
I was on the show earlier as first AC.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
And there was a guest operator who came in who they were testing to be the guy.
Uh-huh.
And he would move the frame every movement of the actor. Right?
Regardless of if he had, not because they're leaving the frame, in other words.
Like you could play the frame, let the actor move, right? And it was like, no, the actor, it was like one of those things where it's like, my professor said that 1/3 of the frame should be behind the actor and 2/3 of the frame should be in front of the actor, and I'm going to keep it that way, right? And, that's not how you do it. You can't move if you don't have to move the frame, don't move the frame, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what the person did, and then next thing you know, I was on the camera. So those
there you go.
Little beginner tidbits of advice, and like you just said, like some people like things a certain way, and you just learn.
Figure out what the DP wants.
Yeah, and you might not know why.
Yeah.
But 5 years from now, you'd be like, got it. Like me in my High School Musical thing, it was like, oh, you never cut a dancer's feet off in the frame.
Interesting.
Right? Yeah. Or I pay attention to story so that I know when the actor's going to jump in the pool and I don't miss it.
Sure.
Right? Which these are all memories going back, and I'm self-whipping for making these mistakes in the past.
You got past them. The key is you got past them.
Right.
But everything is learning. I remember my thing for that you ever work with Terrence Nightingale? You know Terrence?
No, but his name came up just yesterday. Yeah.
Terrence was my assistant on ER, and I trained him to be the camera operator, take over for me afterwards. And he's great all the way around. But he is a big part of the reason that I survived ER, because he protected me quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And I remember he's English, and I remember early on, I was probably doing what you were talking about, like someone got up and moved 2 feet, and I'd move the frame with him. And he'd come over and he'd go, you don't have to move the frame all the time. It's a terrible accent.
What a good piece of advice.
And I was like, huh? And he's like, just let him play. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And to this day, like whenever someone's playing the frame and there's that moment where you're kind of wondering if they're going to stop, and you're thinking like, okay, I'm going to, I often think of Terrence and I just hold the frame, and then sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
I mean, there's a risk involved.
But the interesting thing that I've found is I think actually, look, there's the early part where it's just the mechanics of operating, and you're like, how do I land a frame, and which is just physics and knowing the gear and all that stuff. And then you get onto that next thing of like being creative. And then I think when it becomes really interesting, which is I think where you are and where I am, where you're totally fine with failing. Because, I mean, you're not fine with it. You hope you don't. But you recognize that you don't really get the good stuff until you're riding that line of failure. I mean, it's like we're talking about is like holding that frame to where someone bumps it and just hoping to God they don't go another step, but committing and knowing that that Bill might come over and go, hey, why did they leave?
But at this point, you have enough notches on your pole that it's like, he knows what he's doing.
Or even
it was a risk.
You might get caught. I can't believe you did that because that was a great performance. It's like, look, I screwed up. I'm sorry. But I think that's where the interesting stuff starts to come, for me anyway. So when you were a B camera operator and you were coming in, well, you had a weird thing. It sounds like, because first of all, you were the local guy, so you sort of felt like. You already felt like the underdog a little bit, and you must have come into those things with thinking, oh, nobody, these people probably figure I'm some yokel who just fell off the truck who doesn't know. But how do you go into that situation where I would assuming a lot of those times you didn't know most of those people, right? They were new to you. How do you get in there and sort of like know whether are you pitching ideas to the A camera operator, you pitching to the DP,
I mean the B camera position is it's an interesting position depending on who's where. Like the DP, if the DP is involved in setting up shots, it could be very easy because the DP will be like, all right, A camera over here, set me up a wide, B camera over here, a medium or whatever. And then you're like, okay, I've got my assignment. I know what to do. But if you're in a situation where the DP is just like, set me up some shots, guys, the A camera operator is either going to work with the B camera operator to get 2 good shots, or the A camera operator possibly will just take over. Mm-hmm. And there's different attitudes, and I think the older attitude is A camera rules, feature world. We don't care what B camera does, it never makes the movie, which is totally not true anymore. And so there's kind of reading that, like if you have a good relationship with the A camera guy, that's great, because I think you can value each other's shots. Mm-hmm. And be like, okay, A camera gets priority. That's what I like to say. Like, and sometimes B camera gets priority. Like if I'm DPing, it'll be like, okay, A camera, you definitely got your shot, but you blocked B camera shot for 3 takes. B camera gets priority. Do not get in their shot.
Yeah.
Right. And so,
but you call it as the DP.
I'm calling it, right? But if the 2 operators can get together beforehand and make it happen, all the better.
Sure.
So that you get more. Well,
that's good advice for an A and a B camera operator, actually.
Yeah, I mean, work it out, right?
Yeah.
And I've seen both. I've seen it go both directions.
Yeah.
Obviously, I like when they coordinate a little bit better. So I guess communication with whoever is on the other camera, and work out personalities and conflicts. And usually, if somebody is shutting you out, there's a confidence issue going on. But I mean, I'm not a psychologist, but
You know what? You're not, you may not have a degree, but I think every successful A-camera operator is a psychologist on some level.
I mean that would, yeah. I think you have to be.
You have to be, right?
To be,
well, because the thing is, like, I mean, kind of what I'm alluding to also is like you get thrown onto a set, you don't know anybody, and you suddenly have to read the room and figure out, okay, he doesn't like that, and these two people aren't talking together, so I'm not getting in the middle of that. And you know, and by the way, have you been on a set where DP and director aren't playing nice together, and you're caught in the middle?
Oh yeah.
What do you do?
Oh yeah. Oh, that's a good one, right?
Well, by the way,
what do I do?
Let me ask a question.
Yeah.
If you have a story that doesn't involve Ryan Murphy, I'd rather hear that only because
Right.
you obviously have an allegiance to Ryan Murphy, so that would swing things. I mean, you know, you have to play with you have to work with the DP,
I mean,
but you're not, you know.
Yeah, I won't put any names in it, but
yeah. But you know what I mean? Is like some random show,
sure,
whatever.
So, and even in, you know, guest directors or whatever. So what happens is the director will come in and not get along with the DP, which is like, okay, that happens.
Yeah.
Whether it's through some sort of respect issue or I
But
don't
maybe
know,
they just have
creative
totally different
issue.
visions, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, it can actually not have animosity, and it's just like, I'm not seeing what you're seeing, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so what usually happens is the director will overstep the DP and come straight to the operator and say, do it this way.
That's exactly what I'm asking about.
Right.
So what do you do?
And so you're there and you hear this and the DP has just told you to do it a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So I've made the mistake of doing what the director asked me to do and then later get reamed out by the DP, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, I'm not doing that. So honestly, what I like to do, the director will come over and say, hey, let's do it this way. And I'll be like, let's bring in the DP and talk about it because I think he wanted me to do something different, right? And so you bring them together and then everybody sort of plays nice because there's a third witness.
That's a very good way of putting it, though.
That is probably my go-to situation.
That's where you put your
know?
dolly grip up, or you go stand right next to me while this conversation
Right.
is
Well,
going
yeah,
on.
this
I
is
need
my
more-
witness.
I need more
This is my
people.
HR witness. The other way to play it is, okay, you get asked to do it and the DP's not around and you can't be like, hey, let's bring him in. And then you go to the DP and you say, hey, the director asked me to do this.
What
I
do you
know
want me to
you
do?"
want me to do something different.
Yeah.
Do you want me to go back to the director and talk about it? And then I'll be the middleman.
Gotcha.
And be like, no, the DP says do it this way and this is why.
But
And then
you
I'll
still-
go back and I'll say, hey, I talked to the DP. He says
Yeah.
he wants me to do it this way and this is why. I just want you to know that.
And at some point
And
we have
so-
to go to
and-
lunch, so
and
someone
I-
should make a decision.
Right. Yeah. Or I'll just say, I'm stuck in the middle.
Yeah. So
Like, just
basically,
explain it.
You just bring it out in the open.
Yeah.
Is what
Bring it out in
comes
the
down
open
to.
and just like, okay, here's the issue.
Yeah.
Let's not play politics.
Yeah.
Let's
Well,
make a good show.
Actually, I asked that question of almost everybody, but actually the way you just laid it out is really good because the reality is you want to bring it out in the open without going, you two are not getting along well together and I can't be in the middle, which is essentially what you're doing. But you know, you're sort of, it's like you're almost playing dumb about it in a way, but those situations happen. What about, you know, you've worked with a lot of big name actors, some of whom are tough, some of whom are really easy. What do you, an approach to working with difficult actors? Or actors in general?
Yeah. Yeah. I think you have to have a relationship as an operator with the actors.
Yeah.
You're asking them to do certain things. You're asking questions about what they're going to do. And you'll get an actor who says, you know, you'll ask them like, hey, when you come forward to the table, could you be a little bit this way? And the actor will be like, I don't know what the heck I'm going to do. Just follow me. And you're like, done. Okay. That's out in the open now.
Yeah.
Don't ask them to do anything.
There you go.
And if you want them to do something, go to the director. And the director can go to them.
And in that case, do you go to the director and go, look, I hate to be coming to you with this, but I just know this person not listening to me. And if you want this shot that way, I need your help with this. Is that kind of?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just lay it out like that. This is the shot you want.
Yeah.
They
I
don't
can't
want
get
they
it
don't
there.
want to commit to doing it that way. And they don't want to and they're not listening. They don't want to listen to me or
Yeah.
whatever, you know. So
Have you had the flip side where a director comes up to you and goes, "This person, can you talk to the actor because I'm just not."
yes,
Yeah.
we've had all these situations.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
Yeah, right.
The director is afraid of the actor, right?
Yeah.
But they know you know the actor well.
Yeah. Or
And so
by the
you're
way,
like, yeah, okay.
not even afraid. I've had some directors who are smart enough to know this person and I are not jiving together, and if I talk to them, it's going to make things worse. So can
Right.
you mention this? You know, which
Yeah.
is, you know, which to me actually I sort of respect, because it's like, okay, you're accepting whatever the situation is. I mean, truthfully, you probably should figure out a way to work around it. But if you
Yeah.
can't, at least you're not sticking your fingers in your ears and you know,
Yeah.
pretending it's not happening.
I mean, you mentioned it earlier about reading the room. So whatever's going to work,
Yeah.
you know, with the least amount of offense to stall the show or to stall the creativity or value that you're creating.
Yep.
I was going to say, on the other hand, you'll get actors they'll hit a mark and they'll do whatever you ask,
Yeah.
you know, and that's awesome. And you can chat with them about baseball or, you know, how are the kids, you know, what's going on. And, you know, you really have to read the room. And even those people who are super friendly to you, but they have an emotional scene, then you read the room and you're not talking about kids. You're not talking about baseball. They're in their zone,
Yeah.
doing their thing, and you respect that, and you keep your crew also respecting that. That's part of the leadership of an operator.
I could not agree with you more. And it is all about respect and recognizing. I mean, some people disagree, but I think they have the hardest job on set, only because everything that they're doing is under a microscope. Not that acting is necessarily harder than, you know, what Corey's doing on the back of the crane. They're very different. They're both hard, but people are looking at them while they're doing it, which is you know, a whole different level of it. Do you know? What do you think the difference between a good operator and a great operator? Like, what attributes would a great operator have that a good operator would not?
I like to talk about layers,
Okay.
right? And so your first layer would be you set up a shot that works, right? Everybody's in the frame or what
Nuts and bolts.
nuts and bolts,
Yeah.
right? And then you take it to the next level and you're going to add, like, let's say you're going to add some emotion to it by doing a move or some artistic framing that makes sense. And then, you know, maybe go to the next layer where you're going to accentuate a piece of the acting, you know, you're going to do a little push in or something. Anyway, so I think a good operator is going to, like, keep it all in the frame and make a decent frame. And a great operator is going to adapt and be able to literally add emotion to the scene by what they do with the frame. And that could be holding still and not moving the frame that little bit, right? To just in case they take another step. Or that could be like just a subtle push in. Or it's like, I'm going to put them on the dead edge of the frame because they're trapped or whatever. It's like, put some meaning behind what you're doing. Everything should have a meaning. And literally in this business, if you have a purpose for why you're doing something, you're already 500% farther than a lot of people. Like, I'm doing this frame because of this reason. Like, if somebody comes up to you, asks you, why'd you frame like that? And you don't have an answer, like, get an answer, right? Make a reason, you know. Oh, they told me to get a 2-shot, so I got a 2-shot. Like, okay.
Yeah.
You're a good operator. You're
Yeah.
not a great one, though.
Yeah.
Right? Anyway, that's
No,
I
that's
guess
a great.
that's some of the difference.
No, that's a great. I mean, I agree with all that. It's just a
Yeah.
great way of explaining it.
And that's the tech part. Then you could go into the psychology part and the leadership and
Yeah.
all the other stuff.
What about, you know, there's this, I often give a disclaimer for this, but there's this whole concept that the A-camera runs, you know, A-camera operator runs the set, which I actually have a little bit of a problem with. I actually think the A-camera operator is responsible for the set not devolving into complete chaos and burning to the ground. Mainly not because it's our job, but just because, like, you're sort of in the center, the nucleus of it. So you're constantly sort of like, you got your glove out and you're catching balls that are falling and putting them upright and helping, and, you know, can you speak to that about just what's involved in that? What you feel your part of that is?
Yeah. That's what I would run my sets, not with like an iron fist, but with an open ear, both ears open, trying to figure out what is going to slow us down, what's going to speed us up, what's going to make the B camera shot work as well, efficiency, storytelling. You know, you're like the traffic controller of sorts. And I think it's in the eyes of a DP, you're like a gem, because you're fixing problems that questions they don't have to answer.
They never get to them.
The question never gets to them, not because they shouldn't get that, but they don't need it. That you know.
Yeah.
Obviously, the questions that are DP questions should get to them.
Well, yeah, you're filtering, right? You're going, there's no reason
Right.
they need to ever deal with this. Let me fix it.
Right. Some question about the boom operator or whatever.
Yeah.
Like the DP doesn't need to worry about that. Let him deal with his aesthetics and so forth. And so you're kind of wrangling that, and I think making things run smoother.
And do you
like
work
you're
a
saying,
lot?
devolving the chaos. But
Yeah. But do you work a lot with the first AD?
Yeah.
What's that
Yeah.
relationship like?
I mean, that relationship is like, you know, at the beginning of a shot, we're like, oh, we're going to have to lay dance floor. It's going to be 20 minutes just for that. Can you get everybody off of the set? And we can do it in 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Like if you have people in the set, it's going to take 25 minutes. If you just clear the set and let the guy lay the floor, it'll take 15 and then bring everybody back. That's the kind of stuff with the
Yeah.
first AD, or, oh, we're a little bit behind with this or that. I mean, a lot of the time questions usually go to the DP, but I'll take some of that as well.
Yeah.
Like they'll come up and be like, what do you think? And I'll look around and be like, yeah, I think we're like probably 10.
And are you usually checking back and forth about, I think this is what we still have left for this scene. What are you hearing anything different?
Yeah, I
so you
mean,
can
I've
sort
had
of-
those conversations too,
Yeah.
which I always find funny.
everybody's grasping
Coverage
for
choices,
information.
because I do think that's a DP question,
Yeah.
and a director question,
Yeah.
right? But
What's your guess?
we'll have an AD. They're like, yeah, what else do you think we owe here?
Yeah.
And I'd be like, oh, maybe this and that and that. Like, okay, all right, you know, because they're planning on bringing in the next actor or
Yeah.
you know, next scene, or should we start moving equipment? So that's helpful. Yeah, I mean, as an operator, you should have a good relationship with the DP, the director, the first AD, sound people, the props, the set dresser.
Yeah, no, everybody.
Essentially everybody.
What about working with the boom operator? Because I got to assume, was Gunnar
Yeah.
your boom operator on
Gunnar wasn't.
Yeah.
No, I think he was Nip Tuck.
Oh, he was Nip
We
Tuck.
had Patrick Martins.
Patrick, okay.
Yeah.
Working with him on Glee, because that's got, I mean,
Yeah,
your dance partners, complete, like honestly, right?
totally.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, working with the sound guy. That's again, there's a whole different world with working with people and then just like yelling at people.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
You seem like a yeller,
Oh my gosh, you should see me yell.
just tyrant.
But here's the deal: like, I'll be on a set, right, and the boom will come into the frame, and the operator will yell out, "Boom up!" during dialogue, and I'm like, "You just lost the dialogue."
Yeah.
But guess what? In today's day and age, they can paint that boom out
100%.
for not very much money.
Yeah.
So that's my thing is I'm not going to yell at the boom guy for getting the boom in the shot,
Well,
because
you've
I
also
know they
just
can paint
created,
it out.
and you've also just created anxiety. I mean, there's all sorts of negative
Right,
things, about
right.
it. And you've basically thrown someone under the bus. And
Yeah,
yeah.
So they're angry at being embarrassed.
But what about just working out moves with them?
Oh,
you
right,
know?
yeah.
You know, especially when you know you're gonna freelance a little bit and you're not quite sure.
Yeah,
Like,
I think that's just the relationship you have
Yeah.
with them. And like we've done some like 360s in like the choir room or something on Glee, where it was, we would have a plan, and then I would do that plan, and then I would tell them, hey, this time I'm going to do something different, and that way they could make their escape at a different moment.
yep.
So that's just more communication. And then every once in a while, I'll forget, and they'll say, "Oh, you did something different, Andrew," and it's like that little smile, and it's like, "I'm sorry,"
Yeah.
you know.
But
it's,
actually-
it's a mutual respect. We need sound and we need camera.
Yeah. It's funny because you say, I'm sorry, and I've done that too. It's like, I think that's important because at the end of the day, it's like, I totally boned you, and I know it.
Yeah.
And I'm not sorry I did it because I really like the shot. but I did.
Sorry I didn't tell you.
Yeah, but I didn't tell you, and I wish I had, but I didn't know I was going to do that, you know, or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, you don't need to be macho to be a leader,
Yeah.
right? Just communicate,
100%.
right?
Yeah.
Anyway, so that's how I feel with any of the other departments, and the boom guys, they get a hard time.
They do.
They
Yeah. I don't think they have anybody on set who's looking out for them completely. I mean, they sort of
Right.
have to look out for themselves, and they're sort of alone on some level.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually try to pull them in. Also, because the thing is, they'll save your hide at some point. Like pulling a chair out of your way that they realize is going to be in your or whatever it is. I mean, we've all been there.
Yeah, if you have a good relationship with them.
Whereas other ones will put the chair in your way because you've just boned them twice and they're unhappy about it. What about working with second team?
Second team, I love to work with second team.
Yeah.
I'm usually good friends with second team. I want to go back to the boom operator thing once. I had a thought. If a boom operator shows up to do a take and they have not been on set until they call for a rehearsal, very little respect for that. Very little respect. They pull the boom out and they're like, oh, I got a shadow over there. I got a thing. And where am I going to be? And it's like, you were going to be here 10 minutes ago when we set up this shot, and the dolly went into the corner and you don't have a place to go. That's where you were going to be.
Fair enough.
So if they don't participate in the setup, very little respect.
You're on your own. Yeah. No. Well, and truthfully, that goes for probably any department. But I know what you mean. It's like, especially with shadows and reflections and whatever. Yeah. Yeah. And actually, I will say, if I'm new on a set or I'm day playing or whatever, I mean, it's no surprise to anybody. You're instantly sort of litmus testing everybody to go, who do I have to be aware of, and who can I just like, and if I see a wall, we're rehearsing, I see a wall of glass, and within a couple of minutes the boom operator isn't like, either out there with the pole looking or coming up to me or whatever, I'm like, oh, okay.
Right. A good one is going to come up and be like, what are we going to do about the glass?
Yeah. Yeah. Or trying to find some angle that doesn't work before they go, like trying to figure it out themselves, but at least some evidence that they realize that there's a problem and they're trying to get out ahead of it.
Right.
Yeah. Which I'm 100% with you there. Then it's like, oh, we're going to work well together.
Mm-hmm. But Patrick was that way. He was amazing that way.
And that's the best. Together. That's the best thing in the world, because that's always the thing for me, which is just like, oh God, I've just figured all this out and I didn't see that piece of that window frame back there or something like that. And thankfully a good boom operator is like, oh, I'll be out of that. Don't worry about it. Okay, great. Yeah.
So anyway, that was my side on that. So second team.
Yeah. Because I got to imagine Glee
was like 13
was important.
Second teamer. I mean, that was just the main cast, the kids and then the adults. And so there was a lot of people. And if you have a good relationship with them, it's fun.
Do you specifically try to create a good relationship with them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And also an etiquette of behavior, right? Like if I get on a show and the stand-in comes in and like pops their phone out, I'm like, I'll just take them aside and be like, when you're standing in, there's no looking at your phone.
Yep.
And I'm kind of in between in terms of like super strict. Like some DPs are like, when you stand in, you're standing,
do not look
facing
away.
the right direction, looking at the other actor in their eyes. So two stand-ins like staring at each other
from 2 inches away.
15 minutes, right? And I'm not that strict, but I'm like, when we're doing our thing, you do your thing, right? There's a lot of sitting off set. So when you're on set, do it. And then I also try to be respectful. And if we're waiting on actors, I'll release them. So that's actually one of my cues to because I'm on so many shows where the producers are watching from Paris, France, or wherever, right?
Yeah.
They're not there.
Yeah.
And
they're on a beach with their iPhone out with the live feed. Yeah.
And the other thing is like, and I found this out early, if you sit there and you tweak until the actors show up, it looks like you held up the show, right? So what I do is I finish, either if I'm an operator, finish setting up the shot.
Yeah.
And when I'm done, I clear the set. I'm like, all right, you done? Out. You done? Out. Second team, out. And then they know they're not waiting on me anymore. But if they see me going around tweaking little things or whatever, it's perception. And I like to tweak. I like to make little
I was just going to say, because I'm usually tweaking something to the last minute. And it's not anything important that anybody will know but me, but I'm just like, I like this better or whatever.
But I mean, that was just like an efficiency thing, because
interesting.
I got pulled aside. I'm like, "You're taking too long." I'm like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah.
I'm waiting on people, and
Yeah.
they're like, "It doesn't look like it. It looks like you're working until the very moment they arrive." And then I'm like, "Oh, okay. I got the game now."
That's a great note.
Right. So it's
actually.
like second team done, out.
Yeah.
You're done, out. And then they're like,
Interesting.
"Why isn't second team there?" Because we're ready.
Yeah,
So-
but you brought up something interesting, which is, I think actually being a good second teamers is the most. It's invaluable, and it's also a really hard job, because it's hard to stand there and look at someone else and not do anything for 10 minutes while people are moving around you and
Yeah.
this and that and the other. But that is the job,
Right.
and it's weird, because I think, from just a human point of view, it's just like, oh, I'm just standing here. I can look at my phone, or I can do. But really, no. It's like your job is to stand there and point in that direction and hold this chair up in the air or whatever.
Right.
I've said it before. The great ones they'll save your butt. I mean, there's
Yeah,
no question
the
about it.
great
Especially the
ones-
ones who know the actors, who are like, I know he just picked up the phone before he sat down, but I guarantee you he's going to sit down and pick up the phone because I just know him.
Yeah. Aren't those the good ones, right?
Yeah.
They're the ones like taking notes and,
Yeah.
and doing this and telling you little
Didn't he
secrets
sit down
like
first?
that.
Yeah, but he's never going to do that. I'll
Right.
do that if you want, but he's not going to do that.
Yeah.
So just be aware.
Yeah.
And yeah, those are the best. So one thing I wanted to ask you about was, which I think is unique to, well, it's not only you, but you're one of the few people I know who is you come from a very devout household, and your family is religious. You're part of the Mormon Church.
Right.
And you live in Hollywood and work in Hollywood.
How do you do that, right?
I mean,
So-
does that cause issues? Does that bring things up? How do you?
Yeah. So I've had several instances. So a lot of people know the name Mormon.
Yeah.
The correct name of the church is the Church of Jesus Christ
Yes.
of Latter-day Saints. Some
Yeah.
people say LDS
Apologies.
or Latter-day Saint.
Yeah.
It's common. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons why when I came down to do Glee, I moved my family down. Right. I think this industry has a tendency to churn people out into bad behavior, and
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's one reason why I did not go after features. It seems like everybody comes in and they're like, all I want to do is make a big Marvel feature, whatever, a Spielberg show. And I'm like, okay, so that means you're gone 8 months out of the year while your kids are going to school and your wife's going to tennis club or whatever. And it's like, I don't want that. I want to go home. I want to sleep in the same bed as my wife. I want to see my kids, even though it's 12 hours, at least I can see them in
Read
the
them a
morning
book
or in the
whatever,
evening
yeah.
or whatever. And in my household, it was, I would come home at like whatever, 9:30, and it was jump time. And it kind of bothered my wife, because essentially jump time was 3 songs that we would play. There was Van Halen. There was
Jump.
something 3000. Was anyway,
Yeah.
jump. And the kids would get on the parents' bed and they would just jump, and then I would grab them during the Van Halen and I would play their belly like a guitar. Right. So that
This
was
is when they're 18, 19 years old. Dad,
a
you got to
little
stop
bit-
doing this.
a little
It's
bit
really
younger, right?
embarrassing.
Anyway, I'd get them all riled up. So
Yeah.
those are the things that I would try to do to stay
To make up for it.
to make up for some of the industry. Now, there have been shows that I didn't want to work on, like
Because of the content.
yeah. So here's the irony: is American Horror Story was one of those. They're like, "Oh, we want you to do this show," and I'm like, "I'm not into it."
Just
Right.
because it's like, I don't want
Just-
to be a part of that.
Yeah, it's
just
like
not, I don't need that in
it's
my
like
life.
a cult, and it's like killing, and it's like
Yeah.
all this weird like.
It's not a feel-good
What gets
show.
me is like sexual violence. It's just I'm like, it just creeps me out. And it's
Yeah.
just weird, and so I did do 5 days on the show, which were musical days. So Jessica Lange was singing and
Okay.
somebody else singing, and so Ryan is a great guy. He would fly me out to like New Orleans. We're doing a musical number. I want you there. And I'm like, you guys, you have a Steadicam guy, right? I'm like, this is awkward.
Yeah.
This is a little more awkward than telling a DP you want to use me, right? Anyway, so I did 5 days, and then we're talking about like bumping to DP, and he's like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna get you a show. So what does he offer me? American Horror Story.
Full well knowing
Right.
that I mean, he must have known that that's an issue.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I'm like, Ryan, this is the show like that I would refuse to work on.
Yeah.
Like, why are you giving this to me? Like, this is a test. And he said, Andrew, I'm going to write this season so you won't be offended.
That's
And
pretty cool.
I was like, that's cool. So in terms of being devout and stuff like that, so I mean, there's still violence in the show, but there was like no occult, and there was no like weird sexual
He
violence.
took into
and stuff
account the
like
things that
It
you
was-
had an issue with. So
Yeah, it was essentially aliens, and it was like a vampire
Yeah.
situation,
Look,
right? And I was
that's-
like, okay,
That's a credit to you. I mean, you obviously mean a lot to him, so he adjusted. And,
yeah. So
and he's also, to the best of my knowledge, not the type of person who goes, "Hey, what does everybody else want?" He has a very specific style and what he wants. And,
right, he's very
you know,
he's
particular.
very particular.
Yeah.
He's in my world, he's a genius.
There's
he's
a
a
reason
genius
his
director and creator.
There's a reason his shows are there are Ryan Murphy shows.
Yes.
You know what they are. They have a look. They have a feel. They have
Yeah. So that's some instances. There have been like I think there've been maybe like one or two situations where I excused myself from a day
Just because of the content.
because of the content.
Yeah. And did you explain that was the reasoning?
Yeah.
Anybody give you any?
No, I don't think they had. It felt like they had grounds to. It was
Okay.
almost like, okay,
Yeah.
we get it.
Yeah.
Like, you're excused or whatever.
That's
and
cool.
then there was, and then I did leave a show
Because
that you took over on.
oh God, oh, now you're making me feel badly.
No.
In fairness, I had just moved back to Los Angeles. I didn't have any work. I didn't know anybody.
No, I don't know if that was it, but
Yeah. Not the
I
great-
did
not the
leave one
greatest show in the
show
world.
that I was just like, this is just so far from what I believe in that I don't want to be involved.
Yeah, just because like you're going home every night and you just don't feel good about yourself. Like I have no problem saying it. I did a couple days and I got asked to do Criminal Minds, which is just one of the darkest shows I've ever seen. And I said to him, it's not that I won't feel good. It's just I don't want to be confronted with what you're talking about and thinking about every day. I just don't want that in my life. Like
Right.
I'm not going to be happy.
Yeah.
Because I did one episode with him, and I was just like, how do you do this this is really dark.
Yeah.
So I get it, but that said, the reason that I ask is, look, I think there are a lot of people who have their beliefs, they have their lines that they want, but they get grayed because it's work and I want to work with this person and et cetera, et cetera. So and did you and you have two sons, right?
Yeah.
And did you did a mission at one point?
Yes.
Through the church?
Yeah. So
you said you went to
served
France.
I served a 2-year mission in northern France.
Do you think that the skills that you were, and what, 18 years old?
19 to 21.
19 to 21. So
Yeah.
19 to 21, you go to France. You don't speak French at that point?
You go to, no, not really.
I mean, they
you go
give
to a
some,
training center, right, for 6 weeks and try to learn
come
it.
out speaking fluent French.
Yeah, right.
And from my little experience in France, the people in France don't really want to talk to you
Not in
French
English.
unless you can really speak French. They're like, just don't even
Yeah.
try. And basically, back then, before cell phones and whatever, you were on your own with whoever you were with in whatever church.
Right, you get assigned a companion that
Yeah.
you have to be with 24/7.
Really?
Yes.
You have to. Oh wow.
Yep. Required.
So do you think that that experience and that sort of like rigidity and having to follow rules and et cetera, helped you within the film industry? Did you get life lessons and life skills from that?
I mean, definitely life lessons.
Yeah.
In terms of like being able to adapt to different people, because you would have several different companions throughout your mission.
Oh,
They
really?
would assign you different cities,
And it doesn't make a
different
difference whether
companions,
you're.
and
They don't care whether you get along.
Yeah, they don't ask you who.
Yeah.
And so
you don't
you're
fill
assigned.
out a big like questionnaire of like,
No.
well, I get up early in the morning.
Yeah, right. You get up in there early anyway.
Yeah.
So life lessons, yeah, for sure, and just communication, because you're out there to try and communicate a message, or you're doing a lot of service for the community.
Yeah.
And just living on your own like that
Sure.
in a foreign country.
Yeah. You're ready for anything.
Doing your own thing, and yeah, you're definitely ready for more than the average 19-year-old at the time, or 21-year-old when you're done. So I think that does definitely help. And it's interesting, like going back to the religious part on set, I have had questions about my beliefs and other aspects of the religion on set that could border on, like in today's day and age, somebody would cry foul. I'm not that kind of person. I'm
Wait,
like,
you're saying questions people asking you
yeah,
something? Or
no,
people
like,
questioning?
Anyway, yeah, just stuff that
People discussing your religion with you, in other words, you're talking about. Yes.
in a jestful way.
In a non-positive way.
A non-positive way, right?
Yeah, I got you.
And
you're saying there's some people who would take that and go, let me get on the phone to HR.
Exactly,
okay.
right? I'm not that person. I think the world needs to kind of back off from that a little bit, or a lot of it. Laugh at yourself a little bit and just move on. And so that's interesting. But then again, that's my attitude. It's just like, laugh it off. Okay, whatever.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yep.
And I'm in the industry, and a lot of the morals don't align with my morals, but it is my chosen career.
Yeah.
And I love to do it. So, I'm going to do it. So,
well, because I remember when we started working together, the only time we worked together, actually, I think maybe we worked together some other point. It's probably it. But on that movie is like, I was B camera and we were off on 1,000-foot, whatever, sitting on some mesa for half an hour.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to you quite a bit about the LDS Church, and like I'd never met anybody, and I was like, I asked you probably all the stupid questions that everybody asks you, but we had great conversations about it.
There's so many misconceptions. Why not ask the questions?
Sure. So that was kind of, and this was like, I know I'll explain this afterwards, but this was pre-internet, which I'll
What does that mean?
It's in the glossary of
Pre-interwebs.
terms. Yeah. So it's not like I could, Google this stuff or whatever. So I was like, oh, this is cool. But that's to me actually a big part of the industry is you meet all these people with different backgrounds. And you're like, oh, I want to learn about what and what your experience was.
I think I've extended out maybe opportunities to you that you didn't take because of religious holidays in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is I totally respect.
To be honest, I think the reason I didn't take Glee might have been because I was going back for a holiday. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, those are the high holidays, right?
My religion just screwed me again. It could have been my show. No.
I'm sure Providence helped you out, and you've done quite well.
I'm sure I did something else or whatever. But one other show I wanted to ask you about was you did Prom. And Maddie Libatique was the DP, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Scott Sakamoto was the operator, who's an amazing Steadicam operator, an incredible A-camera operator.
Yeah.
And you were on there, and you're in there with Ryan directing. So what was that? Because to be honest, of like everybody I know who's ever worked in a situation, that seems like potentially one of the more prickly situations that could be out there, because it's sort of like the director's got his great operator and the DP's got his great operator, and you guys are probably, I'm guessing, both just going, I don't know, I just want to do good work.
Exactly. Well, that's the thing is Scott Sakamoto is so awesome. He's mellow. Yeah. Great operator.
Phenomenal
operator. Legendary.
Yeah.
In terms of his
Did
career.
you guys have a discussion early on just so you could go, how do you want to work this?
I think we kind of warmed up to it.
Yeah.
I definitely had the conversation with Maddie.
Yeah.
We went to like a little coffee shop to meet.
Yeah.
And we talked about it just like I did with Bill. I'm like, hey,
let's just talk about what this
let's just talk about the elephant in the room. I want to be open about this.
And he was cool.
If you don't
with that,
want me
obviously.
there, let's just talk to Ryan and I'll be gone. If I want to do the show, blah blah blah. And so he's like, no, it's cool. I want to have Scott. Ryan wants to have you. Let's have you both. I'm like, all right, cool. And then there was always the question of who's going to do Steadicam.
Well, that's what I kind of wanted to ask about.
Right.
Yeah.
The answer is we both did some Steadicam on the show, but Ryan had me do most of the musical stuff.
Just because there's a comfort level there.
Yeah, there's a comfort level there. Essentially, it went, and we got along.
Yeah.
We got along great.
Sure.
And sometimes, Scott would be on Steadicam or he would be on the Ronin with Chris Hare because he would operate and Chris would.
Yep.
It was just a variety of different.
Yeah.
Worlds.
It's just the reason I asked is because it's just a funny situation because you've got like 4 really amazing people in that you've got a great DP, a great director, 2 great operators.
Yeah, like how does that?
And in a weird way, it's probably stepping over. Like, I mean, you can't go wrong, but it's also like you sort of like, well, who's making the call here? And I'm sure that on a level, Maddie wants to keep Ryan happy, and you want to keep Maddie happy, and just it's
No, I think it was a good symbiosis because I could. Fill in Maddie on certain things that Ryan liked.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah.
Ryan likes to come to set with something to show before he comes.
Sure.
He wants us to set something up for him.
As opposed, you mean even without necessarily there being like it's not like there's a diagram that comes down. It's just like show me something
without a rehearsal.
Yeah.
So we would set some things up, and so that was kind of new, and just the little quirks and things like that. But
it was a good experience overall?
I think it was a great experience.
It's a great looking movie.
It was a lot of fun, and it was one of the great parts of the experience was the experience of having these 4 people making it work.
Yeah.
And what each of us would put in, and in terms of like Scott and me getting along, it's like we're both confident enough in what we do that we're not fighting each other.
Yeah. And when he was doing, I asked because this is what I would be doing. When he was doing Steadicam, were you over there like watching? Because like we never get to watch each other do Steadicam, and I'd want to watch Scott operate just because it's like to be able to watch someone of that caliber operate.
Yeah.
I just want to go, wow, how do you what are you doing there? And when you're watching the frame or whatever, because it is one of the things that like to this day, I'll get on a set, I'll just come in for B camera or something, or I'll whatever. And someone will be doing Steadicam, and I'll look at it, I'll be like, God, that looks so cool.
Doing Steadicam?
Well, because you never get to see someone doing it, right?
Somebody else doing it.
Like you're in it, so you don't get to, and so to get to see someone like, of that caliber do it, I'd be like...
Especially do it really well.
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
And also watch and go like, what am I doing wrong that he's doing right?
Right. See, Scott's like, I call these like generations of Steadicam people. So I think first generation is like Garrett Brown and that group, right?
Yep.
And then there's... like Scott Sakamoto, Chris Harhoff of that world.
Yep.
And I think they're like the second generation. They're like the 80s or whatever, late 80s, whatever, 90s.
When it was kind of coming into its
its
own.
And then there's another group like 90s or whatever. I'm in that group, whatever. You're early 90s maybe.
Something like that.
So anyway, and that second generation that Scott's in, those guys are like legends. Those are like the guys that...
Incredible.
Like, we're going to do a Steadicam shot. They're coming in.
It was a big deal.
Look at them unload their gear. It was like, so, he has that legendary status, and he has all the respect in the world from me.
Yep.
All those tenured, excellent operators do.
Yeah, no question. Well, that's why I asked about it, because it's just like it's not an everyday situation. Headsets. You work with headsets? And not talking about cranes, talking about regular operators.
I know.
I ask every operator this, just so you know.
Okay, so I have mixed feelings on headsets, and I have mixed feelings on remote heads.
Hang on,
I'm gonna
rephrase you. What'd you say on remote heads?
Remote heads.
Oh, remote heads.
Yes.
I'd like to hear what that is, actually.
Yeah.
Tell me about the remote heads first, but then what I'm going to ask you is, I want to know what your thoughts about working on headsets as an operator is. And then what working on headsets as DP is,
yeah.
and see if you're a complete hypocrite.
That's a really good topic.
So wait, remote heads? What?
Okay, so remote heads. So I don't know your experience, but ever since COVID and maybe even before,
I know where you're going. Go preach.
The operator is offset. The dolly grip and the remote head are on set, doing the shot and setting up, and it's all headsets and do this, do that over the headset, and it drives me absolutely crazy.
I'm not going to say any names, but I believe that the last time I physically saw you might have been when you were on a set where I was day playing and the A-camera operator was doing that, and you and I were both like, "Oh, this drives me crazy." I think we had this discussion. I totally agree with you. Look, the Ronin is a great tool, but my thing is like the second I can get it out of there and get back in there, and my big reason is I just think it's unfair to the actors to have just, hey, there's this machine and there's a guy 6 feet away pushing a dolly talking to someone in a headset.
Right, there's a robot
drives me
out
nuts.
there, right? So I like the personal connection. It's popular to do the remote head thing. It's probably gonna continue to be that way, and I just need to be like, okay, like it's one of those things that I'm just going to deal with now. It's like focus pullers who are no longer on the camera. It's just like, that's just the way it's gone.
But
So,
I personally don't think the operating is as good, just because when
Oh,
you're
I
in
agree.
the environment, you just understand it's just better.
yeah. One, you feel the dolly move and you can adjust immediately.
No question.
Two, you can look around and see what's happening. You know, you can wink at the boom operator to move his boom up without causing a fuss.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many things you can. Plus, you can run the set. You can't run the set back at your station, like looking at your phone or whatever. It's like, I like the involvement of having people on set.
I was on B camera in the room on the Pee Wee, doing whatever I was doing, and the A camera operator is, 4 buildings away on a
Right.
headset talking to the dolly grip.
Right.
And at one point, the A dolly grip leaned into me, and he knew me, and he leaned into me and he goes, "Hey, you think I should start moving when the door opens or when?" And I'm like, "I'm not making that call. Dude. Talk to Mission
He's
Control
he's
and ask
asking
them."
you,
And he goes,
right?
"No, I'm just asking your opinion." I was like, "Well, it's me. I'd do it when the door opens,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know."
Right.
But I felt for him because he's,
Yeah. You lose a little bit of like that connection, right? I mean, all the stories we're telling are about human connection, and to not have that present connection. I know we have the in our ears connection.
not the same.
I feel like it is not.
And
the
you don't
same.
have the eye. You're not looking at someone in the eye, and you're not. And the
Right.
other thing is, whether when you operate off a monitor, or you're operating in the eyepiece, and you open up your left eye, you're not seeing like their foot start to twitch before they stand up, or you're just losing all of that information.
Right.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%.
Right.
But headsets. All right. First is an
Okay,
operator.
so headset. So, I mean, that goes a little bit along with the remote head. So headsets. So I've been on the bad end of headsets where you get constant chatter during the shot, what to do, what not to do, what the other camera should be doing, but you're still hearing it.
Yeah.
I've been on the bad end of that stick when the actor hears the voice on the headset talking to you. So in that way, not a fan of headsets during the shot.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of the shot, like setting up, they can be kind of useful. Just being able to talk about frames and so forth. And so I was kind of mixed. So on Horse Story, we had them for just the remote heads and stuff like that.
When you were DPing, you're saying?
DPing, yeah. And I found them useful, and I probably broke my own rules every once in a while and talked like, "Why are you like change your frame or whatever?"
Yeah.
And so headsets have come a long way in terms of like multi-channel and this and that and the other. And I remember being on a show and there were separate cameras, and they handed me 2 sets of headsets, and they're like, "This is A and this is B," and I was like, "I'm not wearing 2 headsets. You guys can wear 2 headsets. I'm not wearing 2."
Yeah.
And maybe I'm because I'm a jerk, but I was like, I'm not doing that. And
It's
honestly, I put both headsets on the cart and I walked out there. And then I'm like, where are they? Who's where? Oh, A camera's behind this corner, B camera's behind this corner. And I had a director come up to me and they're like, "Could you ask the operators to set up their stations next to each other? Because when I want to give a note, I want them to be in the same spot." Right? I was like, "Yeah, cool. All right, that makes sense." So anyway, there's that situation with the headsets. With features, I've had headsets that are. It's funny because somebody told this story about radios, because it used to be radios, right? And I actually prefer walkie-talkies.
Yeah.
Different channels, talk to different people.
Yeah.
So I did a feature with headsets that go to 3 departments: camera, electric, grip, all in the same headset.
Same channel.
Same channel. You hear every conversation that comes out of the DP's mouth.
Oh, that's great.
And that could be about donuts at the craft service.
And it
right?
is a lot of times.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, this is kind of new. But there's just a lot of information that I didn't want to hear, but I was still attached. And everybody has their own system. I went along with it. I'm like,
Okay.
yeah, cool.
Yeah.
All right, fine. And then there's the story of DP handing the radio to an operator and giving them a headset, the wire piece, and cutting the mic off in front of them. And they're like, "This is for me to talk to you, not for you to talk to me."
Wow.
I didn't experience that, but somebody told me that happened.
Okay.
And I was like, wow, that's interesting.
All right, there you go.
And they're like, so when I talk to you, do what I say. I was like, whoa,
Wow.
nice.
So that's how this is going to go.
Yeah, so that's hardcore.
Okay.
That's hardcore headset stuff.
Yeah,
But I mean, is that where you're headed with the headsets? I mean, it's just like one of those. I like to be personal with people, but also I appreciate efficiency, which headsets do bring.
Yeah, so here's my thing about them, and again, anybody listening to all these will just be like, why does he keep talking about headsets? I hate them. I hate them with a passion. In between shots, I can understand. Personally, I've never found a situation, unless there's some big physical gap. That's a whole, if it's a football field, I get it. But 9 times out of 10, I just walk back to the monitor, any notes or whatever, The assistant has a headset, so a note can come in. And I've had things where I've gone, look, in between takes, I'll put it on, but I'm not going to have it on while I'm on a take. Mm-hmm. And I've had people go, well, I'll never talk to you during a take. And it's like, great, then it doesn't need to be on my head because, and I want both of my ears open. I personally, on a personal level, I happen to have tinnitus, so they drive me crazy anyway, but that's another issue. But my big thing about them, which I've said over and over, and I will continue to say over and over, and I'm probably losing jobs as we speak because of it, is simply that B camera operators who are coming up who are on headsets, I've seen this, are becoming reactive as opposed to proactive because they're expecting to hear if something is wrong. Mm-hmm. And if they don't hear it, then they don't make an adjustment.
No change, yeah.
And I've been on shows where I've said to the DP, look, if you where they've gone, hey, we're really training this person, we're bringing him up or whatever. And I've said, look, if you really want them to be a good camera operator, you got to get the headset off their head, because they are becoming reactive. Whereas you and I were thrown out there and we had no one talking to us, and we went, should I keep that light in, or should I, that practical, maybe I should cut it, maybe it should be, and you've got to make that decision. Whereas if they're on the headset and you're waiting for the DP to tell them, they'll be like, well, I guess that's okay, because otherwise they would have said something,
Right.
And I think that's destructive to start your career that way. If you and I are suddenly put on headsets, we're still going to be operators, we're still going to make our decisions or whatever, but I think that people coming up, it's a bad thing. So again, put it on in between takes. Sure, talk to the DP. They go, why didn't you put that practical in the frame? What the hell's your, But during the take, I think you got to be an operator. Yeah. So that's my.
It can be. I mean, I understand why people are going there because we've come into this world of remote heads, no rehearsals, focus pullers playing video games.
Yep.
Video games, meaning the Preston system is
and it's all getting faster and faster and faster. But
so it's like notes have to happen during the take, and it's like I hate that.
And it doesn't make for good operating, because if you have to adjust in the middle of a frame in a take, to me you've ruined the shot anyway. So just hold it and then figure it on the next one. But I also think there's another part of this that's a larger part of what we're doing and where we're going with filmmaking, that we're being told to go faster, so we figure out a way to make it faster. So they tell us to go even faster, so we figure out another way. And it's like almost like at a certain point you got to go, no, we're going fast enough. Like maybe you should add on a day if you want,
Right.
You can't make a TV show in 6 days, and so when we fix our own problems, we almost create more problems, So that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it as
my soapbox.
As the efficiency increases.
We're our own worst enemies almost, because it is the kind of thing where it's like, well, I don't know, last time you did this without a remote head, and so now you don't get a remote head, and it's whereas if you go, well, look, if you want that shot, we need a remote head, just pulling that out of the air. But anyway, well, this has been great. I want to ask you 2 things before I go. One has nothing to do with film.
I love it. I don't have anything else in my life.
Tell
film.
everybody what your Instagram account is, and explain to me what this art project that you're doing.
Gosh.
I want to hear about this.
Okay. So I have a friend who has an Instagram account.
Yeah.
Which is it's an Instagram account that has to do with some art installations around LA, Hollywood.
Yeah. It's outsider art. Would you call that outsider art?
Outside art, yeah.
Outside art?
I don't know. Anyway, the handle is at PBJ, like peanut butter and jelly.
Yep.
.HB, Huntington Beach.
Art.
The
HB is Huntington Beach.
HB is Huntington.
Sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah. Dot art.
Art. pbj.hb.art.
Yes.
Yes.
ART.
And it is?
It is artwork that only shows up when it's wet. So most of the installations are done on concrete. It's stencil art done on concrete with a product that, when it gets wet, reveals the art. At the Cinerama Dome, there are 5 famous actors. There's Terminator, Jack Sparrow, Venkman from Ghostbusters, Ferris Bueller, and Han Solo out in front of the Cinerama Dome. There's over at Capitol Records, there's Billie Eilish, Taylor Swift, Harry Styles.
There's a Van Halen one, right?
There's a Van Halen, Eddie Van Halen.
Where's that?
Guitar
World?
There's one at Guitar Center in Hollywood, across the street. There's one at Guitar Center, Orange County.
Okay.
And there is one at Amoeba Records.
Okay.
And Amoeba Records also has the other pop stars.
That's pretty cool.
It's kind of fun. So,
your friend creates a large stencil that goes down, and then this gets applied over it. So your friend has to make the large stencil somehow?
Yeah. So the largest stencil that my friend has made would be at the Staples Center, or the Crypto Center now. Uh-huh. It was a 13.5-foot Kobe Bryant.
Wow. Are these made on a machine?
No, these are hand cut, projected. My friend will work on the artwork, dial it down into black and white image in terms of tone. Okay. And then trace it, and then cut it out with a razor. Wow. And then any floating parts of the design have to be suspended on a netting. If you go on to my friend's site, there is one example of the whole process.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so then the stencil is laid out on the sidewalk, and then the product is sprayed on with the hairstylist sprayer that keeps a consistent flow. Yeah. And it takes about half hour to dry, and when it dries, it disappears.
That's amazing.
And then when it gets wet, you see it.
It shows back up.
Yeah, and it's, some are like the Kobe one says, "Get better every day."
That's cool.
And that's his quote.
And are these things that your friend has been asked to do, or does on his or her own?
So my friend does this on his own.
Okay, gotcha.
He finds it amusing. What he finds amusing is planning the whole situation where, for example, he did a 6-frame Indiana Jones series. It's 23 feet long. Wow. And each frame has a different scene from a different Indiana Jones movie. Wow. Where's that? That is at Grauman's Chinese Theater, in between Grauman's Chinese Theater and Madame Tussauds.
That is very cool.
So, and the fun part of that is my friend will dress up as a construction worker. Boots, orange, long sleeve,
because
with
nobody will ever ask.
I'm telling you, if you have a radio, you can walk onto any movie set. And it's a similar way. There's the construction hard hat. There's the tool belt and cones. Sure. And sometimes my friend will even print out something that looks like a permit with some sort of bogus LA Arts Council something, Kobe Project number 084.
Just in case someone asks.
Just to give it some legitimacy. And honestly, he's never been challenged on
So this is really, it's performance art and art that's left over after the performance art. It's kind of incredible.
It is both of those, yeah. It's like like my friend reached a certain age and just wanted a little bit more excitement. Something youthful.
That's fascinating.
And so I think this is filling that gap.
So after this podcast and the website become massive, maybe I'll ask your friend to put the op logo somewhere. Like
absolutely.
Outside of Panavision or something like that.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been unbelievable sitting and talking to you. Actually, you know what? One of my favorite things about doing this podcast is I don't get to sit down with people that I like talking like this for a long period of time. So this has actually been really cool, and I appreciate it. I'll leave you with my final question that I sort of have started to leave everybody. I'm going to segue for a second.
Rocky Road, my favorite.
Rocky Road.
Ice cream is Rocky
and
Road.
we're out. When I started this podcast, David Emmerichs was the first person that I started with.
Nice, good choice.
I had this great idea that I was going to because I was like, oh, I'm going to have like a design to it in a way that I come in and a way that I come out.
Yeah.
And like anything, like Steadicam shots, you don't know what you're doing. You make it up as you go. So I had this whole thing where I was going to ask everybody to bring a recipe. I was going to start with a recipe, and then at the end of when I was done with the podcast, I was going to put together this recipe book. Well, Emmerichs, being Emmerichs, he was like, this is my aunt, so-and-so's mac and cheese, whatever. I was like, I'm on to gold. Next 5 people were like, yeah, I didn't bring anything. So I actually cut that out of it's not even in there.
No
I might
way,
leave
I
it in
want my
David's,
recipe.
but everybody else. But the way that I've decided to finish it, that's why I'm segueing into all this.
Yeah.
The way that I finish every one is to basically say this. First of all, thank you. It's great talking to you.
You're welcome.
Such
My
a
pleasure.
really and so much good information. But that said, leaving you with this final question. I'm a young camera operator. I'm trying to I'm in the business. I'm trying to make my way in the business. I'm trying to get better. I'm trying to establish myself. I'm trying to make a career. Advice.
All right. Young camera operator trying to make it. Find a mentor. You want somebody who has experience, right? Essentially, that's what you're asking me. What's your experience to succeed? I mean, listen to OP. Is that what this is called? OP.
The op.
The OP. Listen to the OP.
Thank you.
And get all this
Shameless plug.
information.
And by the way, visit the op.io
Yes.
when it's out.
Visit the OP. Information is going to be your friend. Being a nice person, I think, goes a lot farther than being a jerk, because you think that makes you feel powerful. But in terms of breaking into the business, it's like we talked about a lot of the, quote, bigger operators and people get these amazing breaks. I mean, sometimes that's just it. Prepare yourself to be ready for when that break arrives, So if you can find a mentor that can just talk to you about anything like these stories, awesome. Just so that the mistakes that we've made, you don't have to make in your life. I mean, that's a life lesson right there. And then learn so that when the opportunity comes, you can shine and get, quote, lucky because you're prepared.
What a blast that was talking to Andrew. He's such a great guy and an amazing operator. Definitely check out the op.io, the podcast section under Andrew's name for some of the things we talked about, specifically the video of the blow up from Daddy Day Camp, the behind the scenes, and also, of course, some of his outside art and the Instagram account where that can be found. As usual, if you enjoyed the podcast, please like us, review us, share us with friends, and check out the website, www.theop.io, for all sorts of insights into operating and the art of visual storytelling. We'll be back in a couple of weeks, and until then, take care and thanks for listening.